Chapter 424. The dark elf in the tree. Michael was sitting on his throne in the dimly lit throne hall. Gaia paced towards him after finishing her tasks. Claire has informed everyone you are going to Mazeroth as we told her to. Nodded Michael. Instead of sitting on her throne beside Michael, she sat on his lap. She removed the masks on their faces and kissed him. The kiss made both of them feel lightened. With everything that happened, the kiss calmed their nerves. Michael too enjoyed the passionate break. He gently caressed her hair, while kissing her longer and deeper. When his grab around her waist tightened, she purred, "Are you sure, Michael?" After several minutes of kissing, she departed her lips from his. "It's for the best. The longer I stick with the sect, the more they become the target to everyone else. Those who cannot hurt me will harm them, and I won't be able to protect them forever. I can see that, but we put so much effort into the sect, and it's growing up to be a formidable force." Human. Gaia placed her forehead on his forehead. She was so close to him and wrapped her hands tight around his neck. "Snake, I'm just talking about graduating from the sect, not completely abandoning them. We still manage the sect from behind the scenes." He pinched her nose. "I know, Human. I just wanted to hear you say that. I'm not gonna stop until our sect becomes the most powerful one in this fucking world. In the future, every sector should be in our control." He could see the resolve in her eyes. It felt great to have her around. With a woman like her by his side, he could indeed take the entire world head-on. As they were talking, Azazel appeared in the hall out of thin air. "Oh, forgive me, my lord, my lady. I will come back later," Azazel quickly said. "Don't be a baby sea bass," Gaia chuckled, looking at the mighty demon who tried to be courteous. "What is it, Azazel?" asked Michael before the demon started to blush or something. "I talked to Lady Arya, my lord. I informed her brothers should stay in the manor until you return. She asked for your permission to leave Jysel and stay with her brothers." "Why not?" Michael wasn't going to prevent Arya from spending time with her brothers. The longer she spent time with her brothers, the more she would feel grateful to him. Thus, her loyalty to him would increase. He planned to make the two brothers his generals. Soon his undead army would grow in numbers, and at that time, he would need loyal generals to command the army. Since Arya's brothers were soldiers, with enough training, they could become great generals. However, war and commanding an army was not Michael's area of expertise. Luckily, he had the Princess of Nagaland with him. Though Gaia had no prior experience commanding an army, there was no doubt in his mind. She would make a damn good queen and a superior commander. Another loose end tied. "What else should we do before departing?" asked Gaia. Nightmare is saying his goodbyes. Fedora has entered into seclusion. Maxine will be busy mining the crystals in Stormvale Mountain. Tiberius is building his own kingdom. Michael had given orders to each of his subordinates while he was away. Caius and Heinberg are working with the Maven senators to merge the two kingdoms. The civil war in Maven is still young, so it will take some time, said Michael, as though he had nothing to do with the civil war in Maven. He was the one who orchestrated the entire thing, so he could merge Giselle with Maven with the support of the people of both kingdoms. Through Corey, he supplied weapons and resources to the freedom fighters in Maven who were fighting against Senator Vibius. They believed that Senator Vibius was raising taxes, driving the economy to drain, and militarizing the kingdom. They had no idea that Senator Vibius was long dead. Michael's plan was to merge all the Senate-ruled kingdoms into one single kingdom. For now, the merger of Giselle and Maven was enough. No matter what, he needed to protect the Stormvale Mountain and the existence of the Arch-Energy crystals from the Guardians. "What about Sadie?" asked Gaia. "Her task is to simply get stronger. I provided her with enough pills and potions to reach core formation level 7 within 4 months. The sooner she gets stronger, the better. We need to take over the Silvermoon as soon as possible. I'm getting sick of this Guardians." Michael felt the same way. It was like no matter how strong he got, the Guardians seemed stronger. However, when he thought about the third persona, surprisingly he smiled. "Did you forget, darling? I am the fucking Dark Lord." Somewhere else, a man wearing long purple robes and half-moon spectacles was walking towards a giant banyan tree. A white dragon the size of a 3-month-old puppy was standing on his shoulder and calmly looking around the surroundings. The figure was none other than Wulfric. As far as one could see, There was nothing but the banyan tree and Wulfric in the place. One could wonder how such a giant tree grew on a land paved with marble stones. Several cone-shaped mountains were floating in the sky as though they were balloons. Wulfric calmly walked towards the tree. As he approached the tree moved, not the entire tree but the bark of the tree. Destiny is a mysterious thing, another calm voice sounded from within the tree. Soon a figure emerged from inside the tree. A humanoid figure, and the face of a man could be seen in the tree. Dread it, run from it. Destiny arrives all the same. The words were spoken in a gruff voice. How are you, old friend? Wulfric asked the figure stuck to the tree. Same old Wulfric, asking the questions you already know the answer to. The figure seemed to be chuckling but the mouth did not move much. Eladair. Wulfric uttered the name. It's been ages since I heard that name, said Eladair. He sounded exhausted. It was not a surprise as he was being tortured by the Sky Hall for the last 3,000 years. Eladair was one of the founding fathers of the infamous Order of Death. He started a cult to suppress the Sky Hall. With geniuses and prodigies from every corner of the world, he and the fellow founding fathers managed to create a power that rivaled the Sky Hall itself in a mere 1,000 years. But like many powers who challenged the Sky Hall, they were obliterated. When did we last meet? 1,000 years ago or 21 years ago? Eladair amused. Same old Eladair. Asking the questions you already know the answer to. Wulfric began to walk around the tree with a calm smile on his face. Since Eladair was stuck to the tree and couldn't move his neck, he waited until Wulfric came before him. What's troubling you, my friend? What you did 21 years ago. You said it yourself, Eldadi. Dread it, run from it. Destiny arrives all the same. You cannot escape destiny, Wulfric sighed. You also cannot imprison the destiny, Wulfric, this time. Eladair's lips curved upwards, letting out an amused smile. No prison in the universe could hold him back. He is here, isn't he? Wulfric smiled. There was no fear in his eyes, just exhaustion. He's coming here, Eladair. I invited him. Eladair was surprised, and yet, ever since he knew Wulfric, it had always been impossible to know the reasons for his actions. He goes by the name Ghost, and he has already started to grasp the power of darkness. One could not see any expression on Eladair's almost wooden-like face. But inside, Eladair was excited. 3,000 years of torture grew into a giant tree of anger towards Sky Hall in his heart. He was waiting for the day of the Dark Lord's arrival. Eladair wanted nothing but to see him burn the Sky Hall to the ground, and everyone who helped Sky Hall decimate the Order of Death as well as his friends. But still, Eladair had one question after hearing Wulfric. And if you know this, why don't you go kill him? The dragon looked at Wulfric. She also had the same question as the dark elf. Meddling with gods will only lead to catastrophe, my friend. I learned that the hard way. If the world's destiny is to get destroyed by the Dark Lord and reborn as a new world, no mortal can stop that from happening. Elder remained silent for a few moments before asking. Still, why did you invite him? Let me guess, you are not going to tell me. Once again, Wulfric smiled gently. Goodbye, old friend, as he said. Wulfric placed his hand on Eladair's head as numerous symbols appeared on the tree. The faint sound of vibrations reverberated the area. Soon, Eladair's eyes began to glow too. H, Eladair screamed as the dragon watched the dark elf with a bewildered face. Soon, the dark elf's scream abruptly stopped. Master, what was that? I erased his memories of me. Wulfric almost sounded sad. He patted Eladair on the shoulder, which was covered by bark and a green moth. He then looked around, enjoying the serenity of the Ukulun realm one last time. Soon everything is going to change. Wulfric closed his eyes, stroking his long white beard. A gentle breeze arrived at the same time, gathering all the green leaves shed by the banyan tree. The trees brushed past him, and when the breeze settled down, Wulfric and the dragon were nowhere to be found. They disappeared into the thin air. Chapter 425. The Grand Spire Bank in Flamefair, one of the dukedoms of Kingdom Kethin, was an imposing milky white building built with marble stones. The building was located near the avenue that led to Flamefair Duke Avon's villa. From the street, a set of paved stairs led up to a set of burnished golden doors. The doors were flanked by an elf in a uniform of scarlet and gold. This was the entrance to the Grand Spire Bank Flamefair branch. Before leaving for Ukulun Realm, he had to deposit a percentage of his wealth. By doing so, he would get a pay cube which was similar to a credit card on Earth. Since he agreed to become the leader of the Thusian Alchemy Guild, Calvin insisted he open an account in Grand Spire Bank so they could transfer his monthly payment without any delay. Nice, Michael nodded in approval looking at the bank before him. This building could not scream wealthy any louder. The stairs led into a small entrance hall and another set of doors. The door frame and the handles were made of pure gold. He chose not to stare at the elves at the door because he did not want to be seen as a noob who had never seen an elf in his life before. Through these doors, also flanked with elves, was a vast marble hall with long counters stretching along its length with doors leading off to the vault passageways with around 100 elves and dwarves sitting at them. The vaults extended for miles under the city and were accessible through rough stone, complex and interconnected passageways by means of magic pushcarts that were operated by dwarves. Rumor had that a dragon lurk in the depths of each branch as additional security devices. Lord Ghost, just after passing through the door, he was called by a youngster wearing sky blue robes. He was fanning himself with a matching blue fan, and when he saw Ghost, he grinned ear to ear which seemed pretty forced. You must be the one Calvin sent. Michael shook the youngster's hand. It's an honor to meet you, Lord Ghost. I am Liang Li. Lead the way, Li said Michael as the youngster walked towards an elf sitting on the far end counter in the hall. He heard about elves being innately beautiful, but when he saw the girl before him, he realized beautiful was an understatement. Her skin was sparkling smooth. The golden hair looked as though each strand of hair was made of gold. Mr. Li, Lord Ghost. Please be seated, the elf said with a heartwarming smile. You know me? Asked Ghost in doubt. The elf nodded. It's our task to learn about potential clients, Lord Ghost. Cool. Now, Lord Ghost, Mr. Li. How can I be of assistance? Michael looked at the name board on the table before her. The name Vanya Vowrick was written on the board in beautiful calligraphy. Miss Vowrick, you said it's your task to learn about your potential clients. So I assume you know about my two businesses. The elf nodded once again as Michael continued. Until now I'm dealing without pay cubes, but it's not. How do you say professional and convenient? Michael was just saying this for the sake of conversation. The bank took pride in keeping the contents stored in their vault safe and secure. However, security was not a concern to Michael as he stored his gold coins in system storage, which was the most secure place he could think of. The reason Michael decided to open an account was because of Calvin, and for the ease of transferring coins. To this day, when he purchases something for 100,000 gold coins, for example, he had to give 100,000 gold coins physically. That meant stacks made of gold coins so high would appear and the seller or the owner had to count the coins. This process was tedious. If he had pay cubes, on the other hand, he could just transfer the gold coins in his Grand Spire bank account to another account easily in a few seconds. To be honest, Lord Ghost, I don't know how you managed until now without a pay cube. It's a must for a business with a caliber like yours. You have made the right choice by coming here. I would suggest you open a VIP account rather than a normal account, Lord Ghost, the elf suggested. Let me explain the key benefits, Lord Ghost. Transferring funds in your account from one continent to another will be done within a day. If you wish to transfer items such as artifacts, paintings, etc., we will handle the security so you can be at ease. Another benefit that you would be interested in more is our tax reduction. What is that? Asked Michael. Currently, if your monthly income is more than 10 million, you will have to pay tax to each kingdom your revenue flows through. 40% of your income will go to paying taxes. But if you are a VIP account holder in our bank, your income will be directed to your Grand Spire account, and your taxes will be reduced to 30%. You will save 10%, and Lord Ghost, that's not a small percentage. The last part got him. He hated paying taxes and filling the bellies of nobles in each kingdom. If Gaia was here, she would have jumped the gun and said okay right away after hearing the elf. His current monthly income was somewhere between 14 million, including his 2 million monthly paycheck from the Thusian Alchemy Guild. Miss Vowrick, I heard how secure your bank is, but you want to see how secure? The elf cut Michael's sentence. It'll be better if I show you instead of explaining, Lord Ghost. Shall we? The elf stood up, gesturing at Michael and Lee to follow her. Great, Michael was kinda excited. As the elf turned around to lead them to the vaults, He took out a spider from his system storage and willed it to be on his chest, sending feeds to Azazel. At the end of the brightly lit hall was a golden door. The two elves flanking the door opened it to let Valric, Michael, and Lee through. In contrast to the grand marble of the entryway and the main hall, on the other side of the door, the passageways to the vaults were stone and dimly lit with flaming torches. After following Valric for a few minutes, they came to a slop where Michael saw coiling train tracks. Levitas, a golden cart materialized on the tracks after she uttered the word. The trio climbed onto the cart one by one, and when they were settled, Valric just flicked her wrist, and the cart began to run automatically. Whoa, Lee seemed a little queasy when the cart began to accelerate significantly. The cart was taking them deep beneath the surface through the maze of twisting passages. Michael tried to get a look at their surroundings, but in addition to the cart's speed, the vast, complex interconnected series of tracks prevented him from doing so. After almost 15 minutes of cart riding, the cart came to a halt in front of a giant door made of dark metal. The door stood at least 30 meters in height and 20 meters wide. This is the first security measure, Lord Ghost. This door is built to withstand any magical spells cast no matter who cast the spell. Valric sounded proud. She then placed her hand on the door and said, "Obenta." The ground vibrated as the door slowly creaked open. While it was opening, Michael asked, "What if someone else said the same word? Will the door still open?" Valric smiled, almost seeming amused by the question. The door has runes on it which analyze the voices of Grand Spire workers in real time, Lord Ghost. Plus, the passcode changes every minute which only the authorized personnel know. Michael took a mental note. "Miss Valric, how does this door open? Runes?" Lee asked. "No runes, Master Lee, raw physical strength." "What do you mean by that?" Lee couldn't help questioning. "Giants, Master Lee. Only the strongest giants can open this door from inside. As for the location of the giants and the door mechanism, it is kept as a top secret." When the door completely creaked open, they were welcomed by an endless dimly lit hall with thousands of mini vortexes. These deep-sea blue vortexes were hovering in the air, and the sheer number of them startled Michael. "This is the second security measure, Lord Ghost. When you open your account, a mini pocket dimension and the entryway to that dimension will be created here. Each portal is assigned a number. Only the handler of that account number could enter the portal. Every portal you see here is protected by several powerful runes and arrays. If anyone tried, not that they could come this far, they will be burnt to a crisp." "What if this handler tried to get his hands on the items?" asked Michael. "The handler could access the dimension, but he or she won't know the coordinates of the place where the bank keeps your items. Every dimension is near inhabitable, Lord Ghost. No one can survive there for more than an hour. So if you don't know where to look for the items, odds are you're dead. After knowing the coordinates by contacting us and passing the verification tests, the handler will be given the coordinates. The vault at the coordinates is impenetrable even by an immortal. When the client requested an item to be taken out of the vault, the bank will hand over the handler a special rune. After reaching the coordinates, the vault will ask for the passcode which will be given to the handler from our security branch after another series of verification processes. By the minute, she was impressing Michael. Somehow these verifications sounded like intriguing death traps. On top of everything, Michael felt like he's been watched by several entities. The handler then places the rune on the vault. The rune will teleport the item directly to a secure place. The rune will change every 3 hours, so duplicating is not an option. After that, the bank will give the coordinates of the place to the client. The client has the option to pick up the item, or to be delivered to the preferred location. We will take the required items from the client when opening a new account. The elf explained everything patiently. Of course, this is just the gist of it. Some parts of the security are only shared with those with high clearance levels. You can rest assured, Lord Ghost, there are no other secure places like Grand Spire in this world. Michael was truly surprised. He could not think of a single weak point in the security system, and what she told him until now seemed like only half of the security. It was evident that behind the scenes, there were more security measures in place. Therefore, robbing this place was nothing but suicide. Michael hoped he won't have to steal from Grand Spire in the future. At this time, he did not know fate had another thing in store for him. Chapter 426. Arriving at Mazaroth the next day, the sun slowly rose from the horizon, spreading its golden rays to the land. The warmth of the sun woke up the early birds along with the disciples of the Sunrise sect. The sect was completely revitalized by new buildings and majestic flower plantations. The fountains built occasionally on the neatly paved road added an extra bit of charm to the sect's beauty. Only one construction place could be seen, and it was on the place where Ghost's previous house was located. On Gaia's rampage, she destroyed the home. Ever since then, the dwarven engineer who built the Hades was tasked to build Michael's new home. Michael bought a blueprint from the system store and made some changes to accommodate his taste and the size of the land given to him, and handed the construction work to the dwarf. The total cost to build his new home was a whopping 18 million gold coins. The blueprint Michael bought was the blueprint of Updown Court in England. The changes were made to make the house smaller since Michael had no need for so many rooms and bathrooms. After discussing with the dwarf, the house ended up with 20 rooms, 10 bathrooms, and 5 swimming pools, including one private swimming pool for Gaia and Michael. Even this felt like too much to him, but Gaia insisted and refused to go lower than 20 rooms. Currently, only Gaia was standing in front of the half-built home waiting for Michael. Sorry, it took longer than I expected. Michael appeared out of thin air thanks to runic teleportation. Everything all right? Gaia asked, hugging him tight. They both continued to kiss each other before departing. Went great actually. I opened up a VIP account, and Calvin's guy made a deposit of 6 million into the account as my bonus. I guess Thusians have gold to spend. We should milk as much as we can before we destroy them, Gaia grinned. What about you? Did you tell the Kane family elders we might not be able to make it to the wedding? Asked Michael. He sat on the stack of marble stones and helped Gaia up. He then put his hand around Gaia's shoulder. They are pretty pissed off about the ambush. I heard that's the hottest topic in Elon right now. And oh, the wedding has been postponed. Michael was surprised. The Kane family went to such lengths to make sure Adam weds the Oswin family heiress. It was highly unlikely they postponed because a trio of elders got ambushed. They didn't tell me why. They just told me the wedding has been postponed. Did you happen to meet Lord Ashton? Nope, Gaia shook her head. Your full name is Gaia Ashton and he is also called Ashton. You two related? It's coincidence, brat. She gnawed Michael's hand playfully. Ouch, you animal. Michael knocked her on the head. He suddenly stopped chuckling, which made Gaia frown. She looked at his face to see a worried look on his face. Don't worry, Michael. We will find a cure for your problem. I have a feeling the dark elf my mother talked about has all the answers we need. I am afraid he will have more than answers, said Michael. His gut feeling told him something was going to happen soon. Ignoring the gloomy feelings, Michael accessed the system storage to take out a brown sparkling potion. He drank the potion quickly and closed his eyes. The potion was so bitter that it made bitter melon look sweet. After he drank the potion, Gaia noticed tiny hairs coming out of his cheeks. She saw his beard grow at a visible speed. In a few blinks of an eye, his stubble beard turned bushy. His hair also grew a couple of inches, but not as much as the beard. System, upgrade her mask to the max level. He then willed the system, placing his hand on Gaia's face. She began to feel a warm wave spreading through her head. The chameleon mask has been upgraded. Anyone under the half-immortal stage will not see through the effects of the mask. The system charged 10,000 badass points for the upgrade. This was the last thing Michael planned to do before leaving for the Ukulun realm. What did you do? Asked Gaia, touching her face. I made sure you stay safe. Just run if you see anyone above half-immortal stage. Human, I don't think those guys will be teaching there. Better safe than sorry. Shall we go? Michael jumped down from the stacks of marble stones. Go? Aren't you gonna tell everyone? She frowned as Michael sighed. I already told Claire. I am not very good at goodbyes. Besides, they are still grieving. We should leave them be. Whoosh. As Michael was speaking, a shadow was cast on them. They both looked up at the sky to see Nightmare slowly descending from the sky. He landed comfortably on Michael's shoulder. You're on time. Michael brushed Nightmare's neck gently. Before we go, I have a question. You are going to study. What is she gonna do? You faked the acceptance letter, but what if they have records of new admissions? If they compare the list of names with the people who arrived, she will stand out. Gaia looked at Michael. expecting him to explain. Believe it or not, Michael had the same question. However, according to the system, it altered the records somehow. At first, Michael couldn't believe the system. He never thought the system would be able to alter records of Mazeroth from another realm. Yet the system did that and reassured him that he has nothing to worry. He trusted the system enough to bring her to the Aculon realm. Where does this come from? Nightmare nudged his head on Michael's beard. Let's go, shall we? Rather than explaining and wasting time, Michael retrieved the golden parchment from the system storage. Gaia also took out similar-looking parchment from her space ring. Both parchments looked exactly the same. No one could find any difference in the scroll except for their names. Taking out a quill from their space rings, they signed their names on the corner of the parchments as instructed. After signing, nothing happened. They just kept staring at each other. For a couple of minutes, an awkward silence filled the area. What dash? And just as Gaia was about to say something, the air around them became hotter. They felt the space around them getting distorted. In the next second, a blue vortex appeared behind them, and in a blink of an eye, the vortex sucked them in. They traveled through space for more than 3 days, but for them, it felt like a couple of seconds. When they opened their eyes, they were standing on endless grassland. Wow! Nightmare's jaw dropped a couple of inches down in shock. Not only he but Gaia and Michael were also mesmerized by the beauty around them. The puffy milky white clouds seemed so close to them. Around them, there were hundreds of giant mountains in the shape of cones floating in the air. Hundreds of people flying on what seemed like swords and spears, and even broomsticks. Whoosh! As they were basking in the beauty of the Aculon realm, the space around them was distorted once again. Before even Michael could turn his head, Gaia was sucked into a vortex. Michael's heart skipped a beat as he reached for the vortex to pull her out. However, it was too late. She and the vortex both disappeared. System, locate her. Where is she? He shouted at the system in his mind. Do not be alarmed, host. Gaia is still in the Aculon realm. The system has teleported her to another more suitable location. What do you mean more suitable? You will see. The system kicked him out in spite of his urge to ask more questions. The Aculon realm sky was filled with floating mountains. Each mountain looked unique. One had water flowing from the top, one was covered in vegetation, and one seemed to be covered in snow. Under different circumstances, Michael would have taken some time to enjoy the beauty in peace and calm. Now he wanted to find Gaia first. Human, all of a sudden he heard Gaia's voice in his head through the earpiece. Fuck, did you teleport me here? She sounded slightly annoyed because of the sudden teleportation. Trust me, I had no control. Where are you now? I think I'm on a floating mountain. So I guess I'm still in Aculon realm, Michael sighed. Let's find where are we exactly and rendezvous somewhere. Got it. Welcome to Mazeroth, a gruff voice sounded from behind. Michael quickly turned around and saw a giant of a man walking toward him. The man was about twice as tall as an average man, standing at 10 feet tall and 3 times as wide, with a long mane of shaggy black hair and a beard that covered most of his face. He kinda reminded Michael of Hagrid in Harry Potter. The entire world seemed to be the world of wizardry in a weird way. Except this man did not speak with an accent. You must be the youngster who goes by the name Ghost, and who is this majestic creature? Grrrr. When the man tried to pet Nightmare, the dragon showed his razor-sharp teeth. Fierce one, huh? I admire creatures with some spirit like this. You little dragon need all the spirit you can get to face those jerks called royal dragons. For a moment, Michael remained silent. He was scanning the man from top to bottom. Surprisingly, the man was only at the body-strengthening stage. Where are my manners? I'm Gilrine, the groundskeeper of Mazeroth. Chapter 427. Flying train to Mazeroth. Follow me. Your ship departs in 40 minutes. Gilrine gestured at Michael to follow him. Reassured that Gaia is still in the Aculon realm, Michael walked behind Gilrine looking around. The place was simply magical. The rainbows added another layer of charm to the already magnificent Aculon realm. Michael did not know where Gilrine was leading him to. As far as he could see, there was nothing but grassland and floating mountains. Few of the mountains had small pagodas atop. However, those pagodas did not look like the famous Mazeroth. How may I call you? Asked Michael. Gilrine groundskeeper Fatso, as many like to call me. Gilrine chuckled. Gilrine it is. How many students are in my batch? Michael tried to gather information about the Ukulun realm, and Emazaroth, starting from Gilrine, since Gilrine seemed like a talkative type. 24. The number is twice in the junior batch. Trust me, this time, we have some monsters. When they leave after 3 years of study in Mazeroth, they will rule the world. 3 years. I thought the studies in Mazeroth will be 18 months, asked Michael. Gilrine scratched his bushy beard as a few peanuts jumped out of his beard. That's for the senior batch, which is you kids. The little ones will study here for 3 years. Nightmare couldn't take his eyes off the sky where he saw countless people flying. He wanted to check out the new place by flying around. He really missed Fedora. They would have really loved the place, Nightmare thought. After almost half an hour of walking, they came to the edge of the mountain. Michael stood on the edge looking down. There was nothing but puffy clouds down. They covered the air as though they were fluffy white blankets. You are the last one in your batch, and surprisingly you took your time. Normally kids come running here the second after they get the invitation. Michael could barely see the expression on his face through the bushy beard. I had some loose ends to tie up for some reason. Gilrine had a weird feeling looking at the calm face of the youngster. He couldn't explain the feeling, but it was drilling his heart like a drill. Choo, choo. The sound of the train in the distance drew their attention towards the sky. Michael was pretty surprised to see a train approaching them. The train was flying rather than running on a track. The train was at least 650 m in length. It was painted in black with the word Mazeroth Express written on the side in crimson red. Michael counted 5 coaches while waiting for the train. He couldn't help remembering the Hogwarts Express looking at the train. This whole place and Emazaroth reminded him of Harry Potter. Instead of Harry Potter, he felt like Voldemort since the Guardians named him the Dark Lord as the train approached them. It slowed down and eventually stopped in the air above them. A bridge made of light appeared from the center car to the edge of the mountain Michael and Gilrine were standing on. Bollocks, all of a sudden, Gilrine slapped his own forehead. I forgot to pick something important. He turned to look at Michael. Do you mind going alone? I will meet you at the gateway. Michael did not know how this entire process works, yet looking at the man's pleading face he nodded. Sure thing. Great. Hey, race your ticket. Gilrine handed over Michael a golden card the size of a credit card and flicked his wrist. A large broomstick materialized on the ground beneath his feet. In a blink of an eye, Gilrine stepped on the broomstick and disappeared into the sky in a rush. The ticket had the number 34 under the name Mazeroth written in emerald green ink. The sparkling blue light bridge seemed intimidating as Michael never walked on a light bridge before. Still, he wasn't afraid. Even if he fell, he could fly, so there was no need to be afraid. To his surprise, when he stepped on the light bridge, a loud thunder shaking even the mountains sounded throughout the realm. That's ominous. Michael looked up at the sky. The puffy white clouds were being chased by dark gloomy clouds. The colorful realm slowly turned darker and darker. In the distance, several lightning cracks were splitting the sky. The darkness soothed. He walked the bridge with his head held high. When he finally stepped into the train, the light bridge faded away. He was welcomed by a corridor large enough for 2 grown men to walk side by side. There were several compartments in front of him, and each of them had a number on the door. Not a single compartment had open doors. The door near him had the number 23, and the numbers increased further. He walked through the corridor. 25, 28 Nightmare counted along the way. The train was spotless. The blue rug they were walking on was clean, and the place smelled like jasmine. He could not look into the compartments as the doors were made of some kind of redwood. The coordinator was brightly lit by golden orbs on the ceiling. Finally, several minutes later, he found the number 34. There is no knob on the door, said Nightmare. Michael looked at the ticket in his hand, wondering how to open the door when the door next to his compartment opened. A luring beauty with silky brown hair stepped out of the room. She wore a warm smile on her face. You have to place your ticket on the door. The girl spoke in a melodious voice. She turned her gaze towards Nightmare, while Michael was placing the golden ticket on the door. Her warm smile and beauty mesmerized Nightmare. He was just staring at the girl's face without batting an eye. Several runes began to glow when the ticket touched the door. A golden knob appeared as Michael twisted the knob to open the door. The compartment was a small room with a single door opening to the long corridor. There appeared to be seating for up to 6 adults or 8 children in the compartment, on 2 cushioned benches facing each other. Thank you. Don't mention it, number 34, she smiled, making Michael frown. You seem like you don't know it. In Maze Roth, no student is allowed to use their names, just only by the numbers given to us when they sort us into specialization houses. I am 33 until I get my student number. I'm your neighbor. The girl reached out her hand to shake his hands with a bright smile. She seemed warm and friendly, and deep down, she reminded someone of him. For the sake of manners, Michael shook her hand. She did not linger around to have a conversation as she returned to her compartment. He entered his compartment and sat next to the window. The windows were getting covered by tiny droplets of water formed by the drizzling rain. As though the train was waiting for him to settle in his compartment. The train began to move only after he reached his place. Where is she? Nightmare asked again. He jumped onto Michael's lap and looked at him with a worried face. She's fine, he said before calling the system in his mind. System, scan this compartment. I want to know if there is something that could spy on us. That will be 100 badass points. As usual, he had to pay the system to get it to do something. Surprisingly, the system informed him there is nothing in the compartment that could spy on them. Where are you? It took several seconds to get a reply from Gaia. Human, you're not gonna believe this, Gaia sounded excited. I will tell you everything when you come here, Michael frowned. Are you in Maze Roth? Yeah. Holy shit, Michael, you have to see this place. This is fucking awesome. He was stunned because Gaia was extremely hard to please, yet even he praised the place and seemed shocked by Mazeroth's beauty. I have a surprise for you, Mikey. Come sooner, I'll be waiting for you. Shit, I gotta go. The connection broke off abruptly. Although he did not know what was the reason for her excitement, he was relieved to hear she made it into Maze Roth without a problem. Inside the compartment next to Michael's compartment, 2 girls were drinking hot tea facing each other. Edith, who were you talking to? Asked Victoria, the girl who betrayed Abraz and sent a dagger through his heart. Michael was oblivious to the point that he was sitting next to the Princess of Thusia, and the girl who he just talked to was the younger sister of Layla Alden. Number 34, Edith chuckled, winking at Victoria. You know, he was pretty okay in the eyes. Good height, awesome body. Regardless of his robes, I was still able to see his muscles flexing out. Plus, he has a dragon for a familiar. Let me guess, a forest dragon. Victoria did not even look at Edith. She was still looking outside through the window and calmly taking sips from her cup. How did you know? Edith was shocked. Because if he had a royal dragon, I would have known him and you would have known him, Victoria calmly said. Anyone could see the superiority in her voice. So what? I'm telling you, you should find a boyfriend, and this is the only place you might find the one who fits your criteria. You always ask me to find a boyfriend. What about you? Have you confessed your feelings to your sweetheart? Edith's face immediately turned red. Or you're going to tell me that you and Noah are just friends? Victoria was smiling. As far as she was concerned, nothing could worry her, and she and her family were reaching for heaven with the help of Cosmic Stream. Only if she knew the deadliest man in the world was sitting next to her with a vengeance against her and her kingdom. Chapter 428, Runemaster. I should check out what's happening. After traveling for an hour, he eventually decided to send spiders throughout the train. Open the door, Michael said to Nightmare, who was watching the outside with his nose pressed against the window. Nightmare flew towards the doorknob and opened the door by twisting the knob using both of his hands. Michael sent several spiders through the door. Nightmare kept watching the spiders crawling out the door and activating their camouflage to blend in with the environment. The corridor was pretty much empty except for a few youngsters who put their heads out the door to look at the corridor as though they were expecting someone. Michael was watching everything with his eyes closed. The feeds were running in his mind. Although it was stressful to watch them in his mind, he was not in the situation to set up mirrors or contact Azazel. Speaking of Azazel, Michael tried to establish a connection with his demon butler, but he was unable to connect with him. It didn't come as a surprise to Michael as his earpieces lacked the power to enable him to communicate between realms. The spiders he sent towards the front of the train returned nothing. However, the ones that went on the other side showed him something interesting. It was a sight of several youngsters who were tall, lean, and mean-looking ganging up on a youngster. The guy who was getting the beating curled in the shape of a question mark to cover his chest, gut, and face. The elves wore robes so fine and silky. They looked like they were weaved using golden threads. They neatly combed their golden hair, and wore a silver circlet with a red ruby in the center. Their pointy ears and flawless smooth skin were a dead giveaway of their identity as elves to Michael. He could not identify the youngster's race as he was covering his face. Michael moved around the spiders to get a better angle. Filthy half-blood. Thank Galadriel we could only give you a beating. Let's just cut his ears. I feel disgusting just by kicking this filthy half-blood. The elven youngsters were shouting while beating the one who they called half-blood. Michael began to realize what was happening, and his suspicion was confirmed when he saw the ears of the youngster who was getting beaten up. Those ears were not as pointy as the ears of the elves, still they were not the ears of humans. Half-elf, Michael thought. He heard Claire's grandfather Christopher talk about the proud nature of elves. Because Claire's mother, who was an elf, eloped with a human, the House of Elican sent a mage to capture Elasha, Claire's mother, and put a powerful cure on Christopher and Claire's father. Claire was a half-elf too, but she seemed completely human, unlike the youngster. Although Claire was an exceptional beauty, it was still far too for someone to say she has elven blood running in her body. I am tired. Yeah, I need some blood wine. And I need to change my shoes because of this filth. The youngsters began to kick the half-elf harder and harder, but soon, they left him alone. Michael saw the half-elf lying on the ground still. He almost thought the half-elf lost consciousness because of the beating the elves gave him. The half-elf surprised him by standing up. Now that the half-elf was on his feet, Michael could see his face. The half-elf had a pair of blue eyes, golden shoulder-length hair, warm ivory skin tone, as well as a pair of arched eyebrows on his long face. Unlike the elves, the half-elf was wearing a cream-colored jacket, black pants that had several stitches, and worn-out brown boots. The half-elf bent backward holding his waist. "Oh my back," the half-elf grimaced. He then wiped off the blood coming out from his nostrils and surprisingly, he grinned ear to ear. The reason for his happiness was revealed to Michael when the half-elf opened his fist. Michael saw several silver rings. Great harvest. I hope these assholes have something valuable inside, the half-elf mumbled under his breath. Still, Michael was able to hear him. The half-elf gawked back and forth before rushing towards the back of the train. Interesting, Michael moved the spiders behind the half-elf to follow him. The half-elf passed every compartment until the last one. Yet he never opened the last compartment. He walked past the compartments and stepped into the last couch, which was one open compartment. Several suitcases were lying around, and some of them were opened. Clothes and books were lying around chaotically. The half-elf jumped onto a stack of suitcases. The half-elf looked around, closed his eyes, and placed one space ring on his right palm. Michael was staring at the half-elf curiously. The half-elf remained with his eyes closed for a couple of minutes. When the half-elf opened his eyes, his index finger was glowing. He touched the space ring with his index finger as the space ring began to tremble. The half-elf moved his finger, drawing some kind of symbol on his palm. Boom. The trembling space ring all of a sudden exploded. Yet, there were few items materialized on the floor just after the space ring exploded. Michael saw a couple of jade daggers, scrolls, and a few gold coins. The half-elf frowned. Damn it, he cursed, waving his hand. A beam of light shot out from the half-elf's palm and engulfed the items. The very next second, the light beam disappeared along with the items on the floor. The half-elf continued to break the space rings one by one. Each time he broke a space ring, he ended up stealing the leftover items. A runemaster. Michael realized the specialization of the half-elf while watching him break open the space rings one by one. Obviously, the half-elf was destroying the space rings along with most of the items inside. Still, it was a great feat that many believe that space rings are unbreakable. If he was called by Mazroth, he must be a gifted one, Michael thought. For a long time, he was looking for a runemaster to serve him. It seemed like he had finally found a suitable candidate to recruit. The problem was, however, how he should approach the half-elf. He could either meet the half-elf as Ghost or Lucifer, but getting into his Lucifer persona in the Aquilan realm was a risk. Therefore, he decided to approach him as Ghost. Fortunately, the girl he met told him that in the Aquilan realm, Mazroth in particular, Everyone would be called using their student numbers rather than real names. If he played his cards correctly, he could hide his identity and recruit him into the order. Several minutes later, the half-elf broke all the space rings in his hand. He jumped down to the floor with a grin. It's time to find another group of racist assholes to steal from. The half-elf made his way towards the student compartments once again. The half-elf walked out of the compartment having no idea of being followed. Inside compartment 33, Edith and Victoria were staring at an orb floating in the middle of them. Why does your father want you to hide your identity? Edith asked. The orb was powered with cosmoncy energy. Hence, they were able to communicate with Victoria's father in Thusia using the orb. I don't know, but Dad must have his reasons in her life. Victoria had never questioned her father's decisions. For her, he was the greatest ruler born to unite the entire world under the name of Thusia. She believed it was her destiny to rule the united world as the Empress of Thusia. At least I don't have to wear any masks to hide my face. Edith rolled her eyes. She did not seem very happy about Victoria hiding her face as well as her identity as the Princess of Thusia. So be glad, Victoria said, flicking her wrist. A porcelain mask appeared on her face. She slowly placed the mask on her face. Victoria kept the mask on her face and gradually, the mask merged with her face, changing her facial feathers and the color of her hair. In mere moments, Victoria's face transformed completely. She looked nothing like the Victoria Edith knew and saw a few seconds ago. This is going to be weird, Edith said. She couldn't help reaching out to feel Victoria's face. Her face was still soft and very human-like. Now can you keep your mouth shut, Eddie? Edith knocked Victoria on the head playfully. I'm not a secret spiller. You can hide your face, but you cannot hide who you are. Eventually, you yourself will reveal your identity, and I'll have to save you, but as usual, Edith said, puffing her chest out. Tell me the one time you saved me, asked Victoria. Edith stuck her tongue out since not even once she saved Victoria from trouble. On the contrary, it was always Victoria who saved Edith from trouble. She was friends with Victoria as far as she could remember. Simply, they were family to each other. They did not keep secrets from each other, except for Victoria's involvement in acquiring the cosmic stream. However, that was because Victoria's father made Victoria promise not to tell anyone until they obtained the cosmic stream. Edith would have stopped Victoria and persuaded her to find another way instead of betraying someone using love. For Edith, love was the most precious thing in the world. Because Victoria was her best friend. Subconsciously, Edith ignored the fact Victoria faked being in love with Abraz and betrayed him for the cosmic stream. Thusians did get the cosmic stream, and they were using the stream to become the strongest. However, they failed to realize that the power came at a cost. Chapter 429, Castle of Mazeroth. Castle of Mazeroth. While Michael was coming to Mazeroth on the train, Gaia had already reached the outskirts of Mazeroth. Mazeroth Castle was a large, 9-story high building supported by celestial magic with 252 staircases throughout its many towers and turrets and very deep dungeons. The castle was built 4,000 years ago by a 6-star architect and the foremost celebrated cultivators of the age. Archer Crook, Ingrid Stenham, Chiogene, and Karjan Pavlovich. All of them were 6-star warrior, alchemist, rune master, and blacksmith respectively. The castle was the main building of the Mazeroth, regarded as the finest academy for studying wizardry in the world. Mazeroth was built on the Mother Mountain in Ukulun Realm. The Mother Mountain was said to be one giant mountain, before something destroyed the mountain into pieces. The floating mountains were once pieces of the Mother Mountain. Mazeroth was surrounded by a fairly large lake to the south of the main building. The huge main oak front doors that led into the entrance hall faced west, and opened up to sloping lawns. Endless forest extended around to the west of the castle. There were also exterior greenhouses and herbs patches on the school grounds for the alchemy students. Due to its ancient age and the sheer amount of celestial energy present in or around it, the castle had developed a form of sentience, though none could confirm this. Gaia just came out of the forest to the west. She was stunned by the sheer magnificence of the castle. She always praised the castle of Nagaland, and took pride in the castle her ancestors built. However, the castle of Mazeroth made the castle of Nagaland look like a poor shack. Miss, suddenly Gaia heard a voice from behind. In a split second, A long sword appeared in her hand. She turned around at lightning speed. God! The one who shouted seeing her sword against his throat was a giant of a man. His face was almost covered by a tangled mane of a beard. "Miss, my name is Gilrine, the groundskeeper of Mazeroth," said Gilrine without moving an inch. The pointy edge of the sword was just an inch away from his throat, and the girl looked as though she would send the sword through his throat if he dared to move. Prove it. Gaia was the intruder, yet she intimidated Gilrine without showing any hesitation. She trained herself to proficiently lie before meeting Ghost, but after meeting him, he honed her skill of lying further. One of the lessons she learned from Ghost was that the best way to lie was to believe the lie. Slowly, Gaia threatened when Gilrine tried to move his hand. "My card is in my pocket." Gilrine slowly moved his hand inside his coat pocket. Gaia heard several sounds. She even heard a bird squeak. Gilrine let out an awkward smile, trying to find his identification card given to him by the headmistress. It took him almost 5 minutes to find the card. Gaia noticed Gilrine taking out a silver card with his picture on it. The words "Groundskeeper of Mazeroth" was etched onto the card in gold. "Excellent," she thought to herself. "Miss, can you please?" Gilrine gently touched the sword, pleading for her to take the sword away from his throat. Gaia looked at Gilrine from top to bottom before finally moving the silver sword away from his throat. She put the sword into the sheath hanging on her waist. Sigh. Gilrine sighed. "Miss, how did you get here?" "You should be with your batchmates on the train," frowned Gilrine. "Batchmates? Who do you think I am?" "I am the new combat professor, Nayla Steinmeier," she exclaimed, flicking her wrist as a silver card similar to Gilrine's identification card appeared in her hand. She threw the card at Gilrine. Gilrine was taken aback by surprise. At most, she would be 30, and 30 was way too young to be a professor. Still, the identification card showed him that she was indeed Nayla Steinmeier, the new combat professor. If Headmaster recruited her to teach the art of combat to the students, Gilrine had no doubts that she was the best because Mazeroth accepted only the best of the bests. "Professor Steinmeier, you were hunting out in the woods?" asked Gilrine. The thought of Gaia killing another imposter, and taking her identification card, and pretending to be Nayla Steinmeier, never came across Gilrine's mind. After being teleported by the system, she woke up in the forest. While she was searching for a way to get back to Michael, she ended up in the middle of a battle between two girls. They were equally matched, and when Gaia saw them, both of the girls were badly injured by each other. She did not interfere. However, she wanted to contact Michael and ask him what to do when both the girls used the most powerful spell in their arsenal. Unfortunately, the two girls died on the spot. As usual, Gaia tried to loot their bodies. The spells destroyed their bodies along with all their belongings except for the identification card and the long sword in her sheath. The moment she picked up the card, she experienced acute pain in her face. Surprisingly, the mask Michael gave her transformed her face to look like the face on the identification card. "Are you going to stand there or show me around the castle?" Yes, this way, Professor Steinmeier. We still have some time before the students arrive." Gilrine walked in front of her, taking the lead. While showing around the castle grounds, Gilrine went on and on about the history of Mazeroth. Gaia paid no heed to the history lesson. "Show me the tree, huh?" Gilrine was confused by her sudden question. They were at the training grounds, which was a flat, shortcut grassy area, and were located near the greenhouses. There was no tree in the vicinity, so he scratched his bushy beard with a confused look on his face. "Can you be more specific, Professor Steinmeier?" "Never mind, I will practice my punches later," Gaia lied. She wanted to find the tree her mother talked about, the tree with the dark elf. She probed Gilrine because he seemed to know a lot about the castle grounds and the Ukulun realm. Since there was nothing but a confused look on his face, she learned that the location of the tree was well hidden. Gilrine, they were on their way to the courtyard when Gaia met a tall, severe-looking lady in her late 60s. Her dark hair was tied up in a bun, and wore round spectacles. Gaia's heart skipped a beat as the woman was a level 10 fusion stage cultivator. "Headmistress Martin." Gilrine bowed his head with the utmost respect. The lady nodded in return before turning her gaze towards Gaia. "Oh, Headmistress Martin. This is Professor Nayla Steinmeier, our new combat professor. How stupid of me. You must have known this." Gilrine let out an embarrassed chuckle. New professor? Wulfric did not say anything about getting a new combat professor. I checked her identification card, headmistress, Gilrine said before Gaia could open her mouth. It must have slipped his mind. Fortunately for Gaia, Headmistress Kayla was on an urgent business and she trusted Gilrine and the security measure of Maze Roth. Hence, she did not think Gaia was an imposter. In a blink of an eye, Kayla turned herself into a milky white eagle and flew into the dark sky. Gaia was stunned yet again. She is the best shapeshifter there is, Gilrine proudly said. Gaia could also notice a tear rolling out of his eyes in pride. Through the oak door in the courtyard, they stepped into the castle. The corridors were as wide as a spacious hall. It was brightly lit with huge chandeliers and giant candles. Where is everyone? Gaia couldn't help asking Gilrine, looking at the empty corridors and halls. This entire time, she saw no one except Gilrine and Headmistress Martin. Once again, she looked around, standing in front of the giant oak door. Instead of answering, Gilrine just grinned. Then he pushed open the oak door. The moment the door was opened, the silence she experienced disappeared. The bustling sound and the chitter-chatter of people reverberated in the area. Welcome to Maze Roth, Professor, Gilrine said proudly. The bustling large hall before her was the main hall of Maze Roth. It had enough space to hold every student, as well as the main staff and guests. The hall had tall walls that reached up to the ceiling, which was covered with floating candles and enchanted to look like a starry sky. At the front of the hall was the staff table, which was designed to house the entire Maze Roth staff. In the center of the table was a throne chair where the headmaster sat. In front of the staff table were 5 6-foot pillars. The pillar in the center was made of glass, unlike the rest of them, which were made of granite stone. The hall was lit by thousands and thousands of candles that were floating in midair over 4 long tables, where the rest of the students were sitting. These tables were laid with glittering golden plates and goblets. Gaia looked upward and saw a velvety black ceiling dotted with stars. It was nothing like the starry sky she had seen. It was more beautiful, more mesmerizing. She really had a hard time believing there was a ceiling there at all, and that the hall didn't simply open onto heaven. The students were busy gossiping and playing as they did not notice Gaia. Chapter 430, Sorting Ceremony L. Finally, the train came to a halt. One by one, the compartment doors opened. Michael waited for everyone to leave before he left the train last. When he came to the door, the scenery before him took his breath away. Wow, Nightmare exclaimed. Unlike Michael, who meditated on his way, Nightmare was looking at everything through the window still. When he saw the place with nothing in front of his eyes, the place looked 100 times more stunning or more. For Michael, the Maze Roth castle immediately reminded him of Hogwarts. Of course, the castle was unique in its own way. Now that he stepped outside the train, he was able to see more and more students who seemed to be of the same age as him. He could see almost every fantasy race, such as elves, dwarves, humans, orcs, and beastmen. The elves were standing in a group away from the other races, while the dwarves seemed to be cursing at the elves for some reason. The tension between the two races was visible. Almost every single one of them was familiar with them. The elves mostly carried a beautiful snowy owl in a cage. Contrary to the elves, the dwarves were standing beside various breeds of dogs. Michael smiled inside, seeing dog breeds such as husky, German shepherd, and bulldogs in this world. Some of the dogs, however, had wings and pointy ears. Taking his eyes off the dwarves, he noticed the growling faces of orcs and the beastmen. Orcs were the bodybuilders of this world. Their bulky muscle mountain physique itself terrified many humans. Despite their terrifying look, the orcs were a peace-loving race. Only a few tribes such as Dalar's tribe advocated war and violence. According to Gaia, the orcs preferred to live in peace and prosper through trade routes with nearby kingdoms. The orcs were the only powerful race in the world who did not have their own kingdom. Almost all the orcs had a raccoon with a long bushy tail sitting on their shoulders. Among the humans, he was standing last beside the half-elf. Each and every man and girl in the crowd carried an exotic rare familiar. The dragons were said to be a rare race, yet he could see a bunch of dragons flying around like flies. Some of the dragons radiated a noble aura. Their demeanor, the way they looked at the others, the shininess of their scales, simply, those dragons stood out. Edith and Victoria were standing in the front. Since Michael had no idea who they were, He paid little attention to them. His full focus was on the half-elf and the majestic castle in front of him. Why are we standing here? Where is that giant? The elves began to show their discontent with waiting. Only the elves were daring enough to be like this. The rest of them were glad to be a part of Maesroth, unlike the elves. The more he saw the elves, the more he realized the assholeness of the elves. On top of being racists, they seemed to be lacking patience. Michael looked around his surroundings. They seemed to be in the training grounds because the grass field was neatly pruned, and he could notice pitches resembling cricket pitches. The cultivation level of each individual surprised Michael. None of them was stronger than him. Only one girl seemed to be on the same stage as him. With the experience points he received from the Reapers Gaia killed, and the ninjas he killed back in Hades, he was able to reach core strengthening stage level 4. He was the strongest among them, and the girl piqued his curiosity. However, curiosity wasn't enough for him to go to the front and talk to the girl. He had more pressing issues to take care of. In this world full of surprises, it was logical for someone else to be stronger than him at this point in his life. It would take him decades to be the strongest of them all. Silence. An authoritative voice sounded from above them. All the students looked upward and saw a group of 4 descending. The leading figure was a young man wearing square glasses. Behind him were 2 girls and a youngster who showed his chiseled body and magazine-worthy abs. The gray-haired young man wearing glasses was in silver armor that fit perfectly on his body. He carried a heavy sword on his back. Just like Michael, this youngster too had a short haircut. The blonde-haired girl behind the young man looked cold, stern, and unsympathetic. The other girl, whose black hair flayed in the wind, had a warm smile on her face. She seemed more friendly and very approachable than the other girl. Currently, the 4 of them slowly descended onto the ground. Unfortunately for Michael, all of them were core formation level 10 cultivators. While he was in the Ukulun realm, he did not want to stand out. The attraction would hurt his search for the dark elf in the tree. He simply preferred anonymity in Ukulun realm. He never expected that he would be the strongest among them. He could, however, hide his cultivation level with the help of the system, but that would definitely raise red flags if someone tried to perceive his cultivation level, especially the professors. The other option was to lower his cultivation, except if they used powerful arrays. His real cultivation would be exposed and result in unnecessary complications. Therefore, Michael mingled with the crowd, staying at last. Since the half-elf was a thief, he too naturally stayed behind. Nightmare wrapped his tail around Michael's neck as he stared at the other dragons in wonder. He had never met his species and he was curious about the other dragons. Welcome to Maesroth. I am Elliot Watson, the head prefect, the youngster carrying the heavy sword proudly said. He adjusted his glass before continuing. Shall we? Elliot looked over his shoulder at the tall, bulky youngster behind him. The students, including Michael, did not know what the 4 of them were planning to do. Soon he found out when a hot air brushed past them. The heavy sword which was in the sheath a second ago was now in his hand. Even Michael failed to notice as the youngster moved too quickly, faster than blinking an eye. As expected, Elliot nodded. He then turned his gaze back at the new students. Listen to your prefects and don't taint the proud name of Maesroth. If you do, I will take care of the matter myself. Then the 4 of them took off, leaving the students confused. Only a few students could guess why they came. The hot air brushed past them with celestial energy. Elliot checked if there was an imposter amidst them. Although the odds of forging the teleportation scroll to Maesroth were near 0, and no one had managed to do so, it was customary for the head prefect and the student leaders of each specialization to conduct a search when the new students arrived. Michael felt a major déjà vu looking at the disappearing figures of the 4 students. It felt like yesterday he saw Alex, Adam, Selena, and Sadie at the Heaven's Gate competition. As he was looking at them, he felt the half-elf moving his hand through his coat. The half-elf was daring to pickpocket Michael. He could tell the half-elf was highly trained by the way he was moving his hands. Too bad the half-elf was trying to pickpocket the Earth's #1 hitman, and the deadliest man. Your trick won't work on me, half-elf, Michael whispered to the half-elf. The half-elf's face instantly became paler. You need fingers to break open those space rings you stole. Don't make me break them, he whispered to the half-elf with a smile on his face. To others, they were like friends having a nice chat. The half-elf shivered after he heard Michael. He had no idea how the human next to him found out about his trick of breaking the space rings. It took him years to come up with a rune hack to break open the space rings. There is that giant. Someone should teach him the concept of time. When everyone saw Gilrine walking out through the door in the courtyard, the elves began to bitch. Welcome, welcome to Maze Roth. Someone already said that. Now lead us to the sorting pillars without wasting our time anymore. One of the elves rolled his eyes. His arrogant demeanor drew everyone's attention, including Michael's. He was one of the elves who beat the half-elf earlier on the train. Gilrine's grin shrunk. Sorry, now if you follow me, Gilrine said, clearing his throat to disguise the embarrassed look on his face. Despite his look, Gilrine seemed to be a soft-hearted man. The elves followed Gilrine first as the others followed them behind. The half-elf tried to speed up his steps. Try to escape and I'll tell the elves what you did to their stuff. His words stopped the half-elf in his way. I don't know what you are talking about, said the half-elf. Nightmare. Michael gently nudged Nightmare's chin as he leaped onto the half-elf's shoulder. The half-elf almost shouted and swatted away Nightmare, but Nightmare's razor-sharp teeth stopped him from doing so. Walk with me, said Michael, following the crowd. The half-elf realized he had no choice but to follow him because the man walking in front of him was the strongest of them all. He made an amateur mistake by not checking his cultivation before trying to pickpocket him. However, he did not have to worry for long as the professors would strip away their cultivation after the sorting ceremonies. The students would only be allowed to use their cultivation during certain tasks and assignments. Hey, little dragon, the half-elf smiled at Nightmare. You're either extremely lucky or unlucky. The half-elf couldn't guess whether to laugh or cry hearing the dragon. What's your name, by the way? Asked Nightmare. Wilkes, the half-elf sighed, giving the dragon one of his aliases. Chapter 431, Sorting Ceremony. Michael followed Gilrine, while keeping an eye on the half-elf. The walls above the corridors were filled with dancing plants and talking portraits. The closer he got to the oak door at the end of the corridor, the louder the students began to chit-chat. They were clearly more excited than Michael. Under different circumstances, Michael would have enjoyed spending his time on Maze Roth. The third persona problem of his prevented him from appreciating the life around him. What's behind this door is the Heaven Kids, Gilrine grinned ear to ear before opening the oak door. And just as Michael expected, the hall reminded him of Hogwarts' Great Hall. Each specialization class was called a house. The house tables were as follows from left to right: warriors, ringmasters, blacksmiths, and alchemists. Each long table was designed to resemble their houses. The table of warriors looked like a long sword. The ringmaster's table was etched with countless glowing runes, and the blacksmith table was made of metal rather than wood like the rest of the tables. Finally, the alchemy table had veins coiling around, and little sprouts were sticking out from within the table. The 5 pillars drew Michael's attention. They were situated just before the staff table. Each pillar contained a glowing rune except for the pillar in the middle. The 2 pillars left to the center pillar had a crimson-red sword and navy blue chakra on top of them. The pillars on the right had a silver anvil, and an emerald green tree etched onto them. Only the girl sitting at the far end of the staff table was young, and the rest of the staff were mature and older. Everything seemed in order. The little children who were in the first years murmuring excitedly and enjoying the magical atmosphere. The staff wore warm smiles on their faces, and the throne in the middle of the staff table remained empty. Only one professor who was in complete black robes was yelling at a student with a bloody face. The professor kept slapping the boy despite the wounds on his face. Eventually, the professor noticed the new students and let go of the student with a final slap to the back of his head. Students, please be silent. One of the professors who wore a pointy hat on her hat clapped her hands. Her clapping was as loud as thunder. The great hall immediately became silent. Gilrine walked towards the staff table to take his seat beside the youngest professor at the table. Headmistress Kayla stood up to welcome the new students. I am Headmistress Kayla Martin, and before we begin the feast, we will conduct the sorting ceremony. Please step forward and place a drop of your blood on the center pillar. The first years were curiously looking at them to see who was going to end up in their house. They were even betting on them as though Michael and the others were racehorses. You will receive your student ID after you're sorted into one of the 4 proud houses: warriors, ringmasters, blacksmiths, and alchemists. It's forbidden to use your real identity while you're studying in Maze-Roth. Your student number will be your identity for the next 18 months, Professor Kayla explained. Michael sighed and relaxed inside. With this rule, he could hide his real identity rather easily. Also, if someone messed with him, he would be able to beat the crap out of them without worrying about the consequences for once. Now step forward one by one. She returned to her seat as the sorting ceremony finally began. The first one to step forward was the elf who bitched about Gilrine being late. With his chest puffed out and head held high, he made his way towards the center pillar. Rather than using a dagger to cut his palm to shed blood, he cut his palm using just his delicately pruned and manicured nails. He touched the pillar with his bloody hand. The blood was instantly absorbed by the pillar, and the glowing runes on the pillars lost their glimmer. The next moment, the center pillar began to vibrate. The pillar with crimson-red sword rune glowed brighter as the first-year students sitting on the warrior house table cheered thunderously. The elf grinned arrogantly. Soon, a cloud of smoke emerged from the center pillar, forming the number 23. Humph, he snickered at the others for no reason before walking to the table of warriors. Following number 23, many of the elves were sorted into the house warrior. Some of the elves ended up in the house of ringmasters. If the elves were warriors, the dwarves were blacksmiths. Unlike the elves, every single dwarf ended up in the house of blacksmiths. There was not a single elf sitting on the table of blacksmiths. To Michael's surprise, when someone sorted into the house of alchemists, the entire hall was rather silent. Even the students sitting at the house alchemist's table did not cheer for the new additions to their house. Michael did not know the reason for this exactly, but he deemed the alchemists were considered inferior compared to the rest of them. As a 5-star alchemist, he felt offended by the thought. One by one everyone got sorted into their houses. Nothing interesting happened until a red-haired girl touched the pillar. This girl went after the girl who talked to him back on the train. When the girl touched the pillar, both the pillar of warriors and the pillar of ringmasters let out a blazing glow. Even the proud elves were stunned beyond words. Number 34. Headmistress Kayla stood up from her chair. As a headmistress of Maze-Roth, she had seen many students with more than one specialization. She even saw a couple of students with 3 specialization talents. Every time they admitted new students, they would see 1 or 2 students with 2 specialization talents. You can choose either warriors or ringmasters. The choice will be yours and yours alone. Everyone stared at Victoria for her answer. While they were looking at Victoria, Michael was searching around to see her familiar because the girl didn't seem to have one on her. Only a couple of students remained without having a familiar, and she was one of them. Professor, I choose warriors. The moment Victoria chose the warriors, the students of Warrior House let out thunderous cheers. They were excited to welcome such a talented person to their house. The more talented students they had, the higher the chance to win the House Cup at the end of the year. Eventually, Michael's turn came as he stepped towards the pillar. Although the students had seen numerous students before him, they still had the same excited look on their faces as they had for the first student. System, you know what to do, he willed the system in his mind as he cut his palm with a dagger. He simply placed the bloody palm on the pillar, and then the pillars began to vibrate. The half-elf was rather curious to see the human's specialization. His curiosity was soon answered when the rune on the alchemy pillar shone. As usual, the students looked bummed after he was sorted into the alchemists. Michael, on the other hand, was glad, and in fact, he was the one who ordered the system to manipulate the pillars. He did not want to draw attention by showing his true powers. If the system hadn't intervened, both the alchemist and warrior pillars would have lightened up brighter than Victoria. If that had happened, even Kayla would have been stunned because in the history of Maze-Roth, only once did the alchemy pillar and the warrior pillars light up at the same time. It was by the Supreme Guardian Andreas. Number 66. Michael was given the number 66 as his student number. Eventually, after an hour, the sorting ceremony came to an end. As expected, Wilkes, the half-elf, was sorted into the House of Ringmasters. Unfortunately for Wilkes, there weren't any half-elves in the House of Ringmaster. And in fact, there was not a single half-elf other than him in the hall. Michael noticed not only elves and humans, but everyone isolating Wilax at the table. Only a couple of orcs remained still without moving away from Wilkes. Although Wilkes seemed to be used to this treatment by everyone, Nightmare could see the pain and anger in his heart through his eyes. I can turn this hate into loyalty, Michael said to himself, sitting on the alchemist's table. After the last dwarf got sorted into the House of Blacksmiths, the sorting ceremony finally came to an end. The throne at the center of the staff table remained empty to the end. Headmistress Kayla yet again stood up from her chair with a wine glass and a silver spoon in her hand. She tapped the glass with her spoon. Students, the entire hall went silent. Let the feast begin. The golden plates and goblets on the tables were instant loaded up with delicious food. The new and the old students alike dug into the feast, devouring everything before them. The food could be on par with Raylene's cooking. Hence, even Michael was unable to resist the mouth-watering deliciousness in front of him. Everything in the cooking book could be seen on the table. There were roast beef, roast chicken, pork chops, lamb chops, sausages, bacon, steak joints, steak, boiled potatoes, roasted potatoes, mashed potatoes, chips, pudding, peas, and carrots. The desserts such as blocks of assorted ice cream, apple pies, chocolate gateau, treacle tart, pumpkin tart, chocolate eclairs and jam donuts, trifle, and strawberries were served for the students who craved sweets. After the last student licked his bowl clean, the food on the table magically disappeared as the table became empty once again. Now the students can take some time to bask yourselves in the beauty of Maze Roth. But remember, the forest to the west is forbidden for the students. Headmistress Kayla's words piqued his curiosity. If the forest was forbidden, he knew there must be some secret hiding within the forest. And that secret might be the dark elf he was looking for. Follow him or he'll bite your head off. Nightmare threatened Wilkes when he tried to walk in the opposite direction of Michael. Chapter 432. Angels in the Nether Realm. Students. Headmistress Kayla called out the students. Please be aware that after midnight, your cultivation will be temporarily blocked. You are only allowed to use your arch energy during certain events. Now you can leave if you wish. The new students excitedly rushed out of the door to explore the castle. Michael also left the table without talking to his fellow alchemists. He was not in the mood to make new friends. Exiting the great hall, Michael walked aimlessly exploring the castle. Occasionally the first years would bump onto him. They all looked so happy. Michael felt slightly jealous of them, because they were having the best childhood unlike him. While he was their age, he was smuggling drugs and getting beaten up by the drug and weapon traffickers. He explored the grand staircase of Mazorth, which was used to access the various floors and rooms in the castle. The staircases were moving at regular intervals. There were hundreds of portraits hanging on the wall, and they seemed to be talking to each other. Surprisingly, some of them disappeared from their portraits when they noticed Michael staring at them. They looked afraid as though they knew he was the Dark Lord. Michael did not mind them as he was getting used to being the Dark Lord. He started to accept the fact he was the Dark Lord. The more he embraced his identity, the more powerful he became. After roaming around the castle for some time, he made his way outside, reaching the castle grounds. He walked further and further away from the castle under the light of millions of stars. What was in front of him was a massive lake, and on the other side of the lake was a forest which reminded him of the forbidden forests. The forest was thick with trees such as beech, oak, banyan, pine, and yew, as well as undergrowth such as knotgrass and thorns. With his X-ray eyes he could notice the paths, brooks, and some clearings. Off the path, the way seemed almost impassable. System, something is blocking the communication between me and Azazel. Can you fix it? Of course the system can. The host just needs to pay 10,000 badass points. The system's greedy voice sounded in his voice. Fortunately, he amassed quite a bit of badass points during the battle in Hades. By quite a bit, he meant 60,000 badass points. Because of the battle, he was able to afford the fix. Do it and scan if him being watched. Done. Within a second, the system fixed the issue as Michael was able to contact Azazel yet again. Azazel, Lord Lucifer. I was trying to contact you. Azazel sounded slightly alarmed. Something happened? You talking to Ghost? Michael heard Iag's voice. Ghost, we have a fucking problem. Both Iag and Azazel sounded alarmed. He wondered why. We are not the only one who has a portal to the nether realm. There is someone else harvesting the undeads, said Iag. She was quite annoyed rather than alarmed. They came out of seclusion because of Cain, as he said he was having a bad feeling. She hated him for being right every single time. What do you mean harvesting? Asked Michael. They are putting the undeads into cages and teleporting them to who knows where through a portal. They are capturing all the powerful undeads, Sarba explained to Michael. Do you know who they are? Somehow Michael doubted they would know the answer because whoever they were, they must be extremely powerful, and if they were harvesting the undeads, they were planning something nefarious. Powerful people with nefarious reasons would rarely be careless enough to let their identity be known to others. No, my lord, but they all look like angels, wings and metal armor, said Azazel. Ironic, isn't it? Angels harvesting undeads. Ghost, I have ordered Azazel to stop summoning undeads through our own portal. It might draw the attention of these unknown people. Michael heard Cain after Iag. If he was there, he would have done the same. He was glad Cain was there to deal with things when he and Gaia weren't around. We should monitor them continually before resuming the summoning. If they are building an undead army just like us, we will need an army more than ever. So we can't stop the summoning forever. Record everything. Do as you said, but if they notice you, order Delar to destroy the portal opener immediately. Will do, Cain agreed. Where is Gaia? Let us talk to her, but don't tell we asked. She's not here, Michael said to Iag. Someone's coming. Talk to you later. Michael quickly closed the connection when he heard rustling from behind. He slowly turned around. What are you doing here all alone? The young professor he saw at the staff table was standing in front of him with her brow arched up. There was no one in the area except him and the professor. Just sightseeing, professor. From far away, Wilkes and Nightmare were looking at them. If it wasn't for the professor, they would have gone to meet Ghost. You are planning something, 66, and whatever you're planning, it's not gonna happen as long as I'm here. But she came closer to him. If you do something, her voice turned seductive as she ran her fingers through his chest. I can overlook and even give you some extra credits, she whispered into his ear seductively. Scan completed. The host is only being watched by Nightmare and the half-elf. The system encouraged him to make a move on the professor. It sounded amused. Is that so? Michael wrapped his arm around her wrist. Sounds dirty, but I like it. Michael pulled the professor closer to him. They both could feel each other's warm breath brushing past their faces. I hope you don't mind the fact I'm engaged, he gently bit her ears before whispering. Gaia, who was disguised as the professor, shivered with mixed feelings. Her anger was soaring through the roof and tears formed in her eyes without her control. Nice disguise, but you forget to remove the ring on your finger, Professor, he chuckled. Her mind went blank for a second. The tears rolled out of her eyes as she felt so relieved knowing that he wasn't going to cheat on her. She planned to prank him, expecting him to chase away her, thinking she was a professor. But her prank backfired chaotically when he did the opposite of her expectation. You fucking bastard, she began to pound his chest. You gave me a heart attack. Don't do that again, I will kill you. She became madder looking at Michael, who was laughing. It was because she looked extremely cute when she was mad and he couldn't resist the urge to laugh. Wilkes was confused as he was staring at them with wide eyes. He never expected the human to be so lovey-dovey with a professor. Nightmare, on the other hand, was completely stunned. It took him a couple of minutes to notice the ring on the girl's finger. He finally realized what just happened. How did you end up like this? Asked Michael. They were still too close to each other. Gaia was hugging him as though she was a koala bear. It only took her a couple of minutes to explain to him what happened after she was teleported away by the system. After her story, Michael told her about what was happening in the Nether Realm. And just as they were about to talk about finding the Dark Elf, Gilrine came carrying a bucket full of grayish mushrooms. Gilrine squinted his eyes as for a second. He could swear they were hugging each other. However, when he realized the girl was the new professor, he dismissed the thought and cursed himself for thinking like that. What the hell are you doing? Before Gilrine could ask anything, Gaia shouted at him. The big man started to get freaked out by the new professor. Professor Alani asked for these rain cloud mushrooms, Professor Steinmeier. I assume these are for that moron who got his ass kicked by a dwarf. Gilrine was shocked to see Gaia calling a student moron. He had never seen a professor utter such a word so casually. He scratched his head, thinking about what to say next. I heard Professor Lane is talking about suspending that moron. It was funny actually. First, he got his ass kicked by a dwarf and now he's facing a suspension for getting his ass kicked. Gaia laughed. What was that about? Asked Michael. Professor Jane was the dark-robed professor with dark hair who was slapping a student in the Great Hall before the sorting ceremony. Michael was curious about what happened. Simple version, the guy is a warrior. Because of some reason, he chose to squabble with a dwarf in the House of Blacksmiths. According to him, the dwarf carefully planned and ambushed him, which is utter bullshit. He got his ass handed over to him by the dwarf. So what's gonna happen to the dwarf professor? Since Gilrine was looking at them, Michael addressed Gaia as Professor. Nothing, Gilrine said. He is a warrior and in House Warriors, getting beaten up by the other house students is considered a shame as the warriors feel they are superior to the others. The student is lucky the head prefect did not expel him. Now Michael understood what was going on here. However, he had one doubt. Professor Steinmeier, I thought you are the head of House Warriors. I am, Gaia said. Professor Serene Jane is head of alchemists and I heard he's been eyeing the combat teacher role for some time. Isn't it true, Gilrine? She turned her gaze towards Gilrine, who felt uncomfortable talking about the politics amongst the staff in front of a student. Seeing how he reacted, Gaia rolled her eyes. I heard this from a student and it seems everyone knows it. No point in hiding, you big Dumbo. She stepped towards Gilrine. As the head of House Warriors, I have the right to know everything related to my house, and you're gonna tell me everything. Gaia put her hand on Gilrine's shoulder and smiled. That smile freaked him out more. Or I'm gonna shove those mushrooms so far up your ass and you will taste them in your mouth. She left the area after threatening Gilrine. God, what just hit Mazeroth? Gilrine mumbled under his breath, looking at her figure disappearing into the darkness. Chapter 433, Mysterious Employer of 66-inch. Hey Gilrine, I want to ask you something. Michael came to Gilrine's side. The big man was still staring at the door that Gaia walked through. Hello. He had to pat Gilrine on the shoulder to get his attention. Oh sorry, did you say something? Yeah, I want to ask if someone from another house could share the room with me. Gilrine was taken aback by surprise. No, God no. You just came to Mazorth and you already found a mate. The big man was frantically shaking his head. It's not a girl. He's just a friend, Michael quickly said before Gilrine could get another idea. Why can't he stay in his room? Asked Gilrine as Michael waved at Nightmare to bring Wilkes closer. Hearing the footsteps, Gilrine turned around and saw Wilkes walking towards them. The moment he saw the half-elf, Gilrine discovered why Ghost was asking such a question. Oh, Michael noticed the sadness emerge in Gilrine's eyes for a moment when he saw Wilkes. You can share rooms. There are no rules against a student from another house bunking in another house room. It's a common thing here. When Wilkes came to them, Gilrine patted Wilkes on the shoulder. Have it rough, eh? It will get better. Don't fret about it. Gilrine sounded as though he had personal experience of getting bullied. It was obvious to everyone that Gilrine isn't a pure-blooded human. Michael guessed he might be half giant and half human. Compared to the humans, the elves were next-level racists. Hence, Wilkes was affected by the racism much more than Gilrine. Yeah, he's having it rough. So he will stay with us. Michael placed his hand on Wilkes' shoulder with a smile. Wilkes felt like he was being stared at by a predator as he swallowed a mouthful of saliva. Wilkes wasn't a soft-hearted one. The life on the streets forged him to be cold, cunning, and headstrong. However, something about the human before him sent a chill through his spine. You two should return to the Great Hall. Your prefects will be waiting there. Gilrine patted the youngsters before gently stroking Nightmare's chin. Good luck with your classes tomorrow. Especially in your combat classes. Professor Steinmeier freaks me out. You didn't see? Wilkes asked Gilrine. Saw what? Nothing. Come on 45, it's way past your bedtime. Michael dragged him away from Gilrine before Wilkes spilled the beans about Gaia and him. See you tomorrow, Gilrine. Michael waved at Gilrine before making his way to the Great Hall. The Great Hall was once again packed with students when he arrived. Few of the elves gave Wilkes a death glare, while some just ignored him completely as though he didn't exist. Michael could care less about these racist assholes. House alchemists, follow me in an orderly manner, said a curly brown-haired youngster. Arch energy flow will be blocked in 3, 2, 1. A voice echoed through the hall. When the voice said 1, the arch-energy in the hall disappeared. However, Michael did not feel any difference. In fact, he could feel the arch-energy running in his body. The changes the system made to you when you were in the southern continent applies in Ukulun realm too. You can thank me now. It's not like you did it for free. Anyways, I appreciate the help, said Michael in his mind. As they were following the perfect, more and more elves down the hall were staring at Wilkes. Some of the elves were slapping him on the head for no reason. The perfect seemed to ignore it, and Michael started to get annoyed by this. Fuckers, Wilkes cursed under his breath. When he received the invitation to join Mazeroth, he was happy in his life for the first time. He thought he would finally be free of elves and their bullying. His fantasy was shattered as he realized this place was no different than R, filled with elves. On top of these racist bullies, he ended with a human who somehow saw him breaking space rings and stealing stuff. Wilkes still had no idea what the human wanted from him. As Michael expected, they followed the prefect to a wall where there was a portrait of a lady with green hair hanging on. Password, the lady asked in a melodious voice. Proporium triecto, the portrait swung forward to reveal a round hole in the wall. They all scrambled through it and found themselves in the alchemist's common room, a cozy square room. Once they arrived inside the room, they were welcomed by the roaring fire, squashy armchairs, and sofas. The dormitories were reached by climbing the winding mahogany staircase, decorated with emerald green. Posters of a few old people, and a 12-feet-tall massive painting of a green-haired lady with 2 saplings in her hand were covered with thick golden blankets. She was one of the 4 founders of Mazeroth, and the patron of House Alchemist, Ingrid Stenham. Gold chandeliers cast a warm glow all around, making the room cozier and shinier. The room was full of squashy armchairs, tables, and a bulletin board where school notices, ads, lost posters, etc. could be posted. The common room was decorated in several shades of emerald green, which was associated with the house. The common room was comfortable, but not more comfortable than the Warrior House basement. There were also bookcases located in the room, filled with various novels and forms of literature. The room was instantly hated by Michael due to the lack of darkness and, to be exact, too much green. He wanted to wear sunglasses to cover his eyes from all the greenness. Boys' rooms are this way. The perfect pointed to the mahogany staircase at the far end of the room. Girls are through that door. He then pointed at the door on the right as the girls made their way to their rooms instead of spending some time in the common room. Michael and Wilkes reached the dormitory by climbing the stairs. In front of them was a narrow corridor, and on either side of the corridors were doors that had no number of any sort. Take a room you like. We have so many. The prefect's voice came from behind as the boys began to get into a room one by one. Michael loved some privacy and silence, hence he chose the last room at the far end of the corridor. The room was equipped with a centrally located mini fireplace, and a bunk bed flanked by a set of windows and space for storing personal belongings. On the windowsill, a water jug was placed, in case any of the students should feel the need for a drink in the middle of the night. A wooden board was located on either side of the bed. A wooden chair and dresser were located on one side of the bed, near the nightstand. A wooden bookcase was located on the other side of the bed with books on top of it. The room had stone walls and wooden floors. The windows had emerald green curtains just like the carpet with the house crest, a single tree in the center of it. I'll take the top bed. Michael took off his silver long coat and hung it on the dresser before jumping up onto his bed. Are you gonna tell me who the hell are you and what do you want from me? Nightmare flapped his wings to land on Michael's chest. What's your plan in life? Instead of answering Wilkes' question, he questioned Wilkes. You're gonna live your whole life scrounging for coins like a petty thief? Asked Michael. Nah, he will get caught one day and probably die in prison. If he didn't get beaten to death first. So you two are now my well-wishers? Wilkes rolled his eyes, plugging into the comfy chair beside him. We can be, Nightmare said. There's someone who would pay a lot for your talent, Wilkes. Is that so? Wilkes leaned back to listen to his sales pitch. Since you might have grown up in the streets, you probably know what kind of men would pay a lot for thieves like you. As a matter of fact, I know and I've worked for many. I probably know the person you are talking about. Trust me, you don't. No one knows him. You just do our work without asking any questions, and he would pay you quite handsomely. What are you saying? Hey, I'm just a petty thief. I stole a scroll years ago which showed me how to break open space rings. Okay. Here I said it. What kind of work can I do to earn a lot? I'm not a cultivation monster like you. But you are a rune master and my employer is looking for an ambitious rune master. Your star level doesn't matter. If you serve him well, he can make you climb up the star levels and even reach the 6-star level. You can't bullshit a bullshitter 66 or whatever your name is. Knock. Knock. Someone knocked on the door. Wilkes was closer to the door, so he opened the door to see an old lady with a trolley full of stacks of clothes. Oh, the woman seemed surprised to see a half-elf. Several seconds later, she put a smile on her face. Your uniforms, dear, 2 alchemist robes, I presume? Asked the old woman. Nah. Wilax shook his head, pretending he didn't see the surprised look on her face. 1 alchemist and 1 rune master, please. The old woman picked up an emerald green robe from the top of the trolley and a navy blue one from under. He handed over the neatly pressed robes to Wilkes. There he is. Just when the lady was about to turn the trolley and leave, a tall, lean, and mean-looking elf arrived. He was not alone. He had a group of 5 elves behind him. All of them were wearing gray robes with golden borders. Sensing the trouble, the old woman rushed away from the room as fast as her old legs could move. Oh no you don't. The elves grabbed the door before Wilax could shut it close. Nightmare craned his neck to see 5 elves walking into their room like they owned the room. One of the elves leading the group pushed Wilkes onto the chair behind. So the filthy rat is hiding in the sewers. Guys, should we not do this now? Wilkes tried to wiggle himself out of the trouble. This is the perfect time to do this. Guys, close the door. We don't want the rat to escape, do we? The elf put his leg Wilkes' chest and pressed him against the chair. Evindel, do we really have to waste this healing potion on him? The elven girl asked worriedly. She seemed to care more about the healing potion than what was about to happen to Wilkes. We can't risk getting expelled, Lena. Especially because of this filth. The elves completely ignored Michael. Nightmare turned his head towards Michael and saw him lay down on the bed with his eyes closed. He did not seem like he was going to intervene. We really shouldn't do this, said Wilkes. Or we like to do plap. The elf slapped Wilkes with enough force to produce an ear-piercing sound. The hand mark was imprinted on Wilkes' pale face. His face reddened. Goo-plap. Wilkes' words were abruptly interrupted by another slap. This time, blood started to seep through his nostrils due to the force. Ghost, do something, Nightmare whispered, yet Ghost remained still. Chapter 434. The Prophecy Breaker. Let him soften up a bit more, Michael nonchalantly said to Nightmare, and continued to lay down on the bed with his eyes closed. Meanwhile, the elves began to get rougher and rougher. Wilkes growled in pain. Before coming to Mazeroth, Wilkes lived in the slum area of Kingdom Lantis. The elves hated coming to that part of the area. Wilkes learned to hide, and he seldom got the attention of the elves after he grew up. However, in Mazeroth, he had a target on his back. He had no place to run away anymore. He thought Mazeroth would be different, but now he realized that Mazeroth could be worse than Lantis. Nightmare wanted to save Wilkes, but after what happened last time when he tried to save Sabrina, Nightmare obeyed Michael's order not to get into trouble by helping people prematurely. As Nightmare was looking at Michael and Wilkes, the elves began to stomp Wilkes on the chest. Hey, don't kill him, the elven girl shouted, seeing Wilkes puking out blood. We have a healing potion. The beating had crossed the point of bullying. They were killing Wilkes. Take the deal, 45, or this will be the rest of your life. Getting beaten up. Finally, Michael opened his mouth again. The elves stopped the beating for a second to turn their gazes towards Michael. Michael jumped down from the bunk bed / he rolled up his sleeves to his elbows, slowly walking towards the group of elves. The elven woman was taken aback by him as she stared at him for a few moments without even blinking. He was on par with the elven princes of Ar in terms of good-looking, and unlike the elven princess, his body was rough and muscular. She was undressing him in her mind as she couldn't help it. The white shirt he wore stretched to the point it looked as though it was going to tear apart. Deal, look at this human asshole. The leader of this elven gang snickered at Michael. What do you want? The elf asked grimly. He was not threatened by Michael's physique. To give you a choice, said Michael, cracking his neck. You see, this half-elf works for me now. So the employer-employee contract says any damage to the employee by racist assholes will result in the assholes getting their bones broken up. The elf's face turned in overwhelming anger. The elves believed they were the superior race, and every other race was beneath them. Thus, Michael's words kindled the anger flame inside them. The other elves showed the same reaction as the leader elf. Even the elven girl frowned as she wanted to rip his tongue out for insulting them. You just made the worst mistake in your pathetic life, Mago. You and your friends can leave now, or one of you can carry your racist butts in a bucket. Wilkes was growling on the ground. If he wasn't overwhelmed by pain, he would have been surprised by Michael because he was picking up a fight with 5 elves without the ability to cast spells. Now I'm going to count to 3. Maggot, the elf, stepped forward. 2. The moment the word 2 came out of his mouth, Michael headbutted the elf, breaking his nose. In a snap of time, he slammed the elf's head onto the wall nearby and elbowed his head rapidly. The elves were stunned as everything happened so fast. The elf fell with blood spraying out of his nose. The elf did not move at all. Nightmare wondered if the elf was dead or alive. While the elves were stunned, Michael grabbed a thick book from the book rack on his right and used the spine of the book to break another nose. This time, the other elves reacted as they threw their fists at Michael. Michael hit the elf's nose with the book yet again before slapping the fist of the girl, so hard her wrist turned another side. Ah! The girl screamed in agony. The girl was so delicate and Michael was so strong. Hence, his single slap on her wrist broke her wrist. The elf who got hit by the book stumbled back, due to the force of his nose breaking. The leader elf was lying on the ground beside Wilkes. The girl was screaming in agony and another elf was knocked out. Only 2 elves remained, but fear started to cloud the hearts of the remaining 2. Michael was too fast. They couldn't cope with his speed. Michael did not stop with breaking the girl's wrist. He threw the book, which now had blood on the cover, at one elf. The elf stumbled back as he walked towards them, stepping over the elf who got his nose broken by the book. The elf puked blood as Wilkes did when Michael stepped over his chest. The girl was still screaming, holding her broken wrist. But her scream was abruptly stopped by a knee to her face. The force immediately knocked her out cold. Seeing the girl gets knocked out by the human caused the last 2 elves to boil in anger. They mustered their courage to dash at him. Michael evaded their fists with ease. Plap! He slapped one elf on the face, making him stumble back and fall down. The other elf was unlucky as he grabbed his hand and punched the elbow, snapping the bone in half. The elf screamed, but Michael did not give a shit about his agony. He grabbed the elf by his neck and rapidly punched him in the face until the elf's rosy face got painted red with his blood. When Michael turned to look at the elf who did not get knocked out cold by him, his eyes flickered in crimson red. In pain and fear, the elf did not notice his eyes flickering. Michael bent down and picked up the healing potion from the ground near the elven girl. Get out of my room. His gaze sent a chill running through the elf's spine. He quickly got himself back to his feet and dragged his friends outside the room as fast as he could. Michael then threw the healing potion as it was nothing to Wilkes. What have you done? After chugging the healing potion and getting back on his feet, Wilkes asked Michael. He was back on his bunk bed. Bullied the bullies. That fucking idiots. Why can't they leave me alone? Wilkes cursed the elves before crashing down on the chair. This is our first day here and we are already in a big trouble. Now we aren't. If anyone is in trouble, it's them, said Nightmare. Wilkes looked surprised as Nightmare began to explain what Gilrine and Gaia said about the dwarf beating up a guy from the warrior house. Although what he heard from Nightmare surprised him, the story did make sense to Wilkes. The elves are like snakes, man. Once they target you, they won't rest until you are under 6 feet. Humph, Nightmare snickered. Neither Wilkes nor the elves had any idea about what he was capable of. As far as Nightmare was concerned, they were lucky that Michael was able to control himself. In case the third persona took control, they would have been lying on the ground in their own pool of blood. I don't think the warriors would let go scot-free after someone beat up their house students. I hope we don't get expelled, Wilkes sighed. I don't give a shit about this school and you shouldn't either. If you aim to get rich and powerful, there are better ways and the choice you made is the best way, said Michael. He wanted to get some shut-eye before starting his search for the elf in the tree. He had no idea where the elf might be or how big the Ukulun realm was. He was having second thoughts about using drones to scour the realm for the elf, as the drones might get detected by some arrays if Mazeroth have any, and it was highly likely that they have numerous defense mechanisms. Somewhere else in the Ukulun realm, Eladir, the elf Michael and Gaia were searching for, was looking at the dark sky above him. The sky was ominous and dark like never before. There was not a single star or speck of glow in the dark sky. It was pitch black, void of any light. The ominous sky put a smile on his face. One could not see a smile though, because his face was merged with a tree and barks covered most of his body. "He is here," Eladir said. He closed his eyes, mumbling something under his breath. Several glowing runes appeared on the tree. The banyan tree withered immediately, but soon, the tree turned into its previous self. However, the leaves fell off the tree and began to form a cyclone. A couple of seconds later, the cyclone took a shape of a humanoid shape. "Find him. Where there is blood, he will be there." The humanoid figure made of leaves flew away with the wind, leaving Eladir alone. The Great War has finally begun. The Sky Hall went so far to prevent the Dark Lord from appearing in this world. 3,000 years ago, the Order of Death was wiped off by the Sky Hall and the Guardians. They failed the Dark Lord, and their failure resulted in Sky Hall prisoning the soul of the Dark Lord in a void universe. Only a few in this world knew the origins of the Dark Lord, and what the Sky Hall did to him. The reason they left him alive was only Eladir knew how to open the portal back to Earth. And if the Sky Hall managed to cast the Dark Lord back to his cage, he wouldn't come back to this universe for the rest of his life. Suddenly Eladir looked up to see a bright glow appear in the sky. Alas, the prophecy breaker appeared. Chapter 435. Unruly Professor Steinmeier. The next morning Michael reluctantly put on the emerald green robes of the alchemy house, and left his room with Wilkes. Nightmare was called to another classroom where they trained the familiars. Since Nightmare was curious about the other dragons and the magical beasts, Michael let the dragon go. The robes were similar to the robes worn by the Hogwarts students with a few adjustments. There were clear signs to guide them toward their first class. Through the labyrinth of corridors, they reached a red oak door that had the sign Combat Hall hanging above. The combat class took place on the first floor, Class 86. In the classroom, an iron chandelier hung from the ceiling, as well as a huge dragon's skeleton. On one end of the classroom stood a projector that was activated by magic. Several desks and tables could be found in the classroom, as well as some sets of large windows. Calling it a classroom was an understatement. It was a large hall, big as some throne halls. The classroom was gloomy as curtains had been drawn over the windows, and was lit by candlelight. Portraits of various fighting forms and battlefields adorned the walls. Some portraits were showing people who appeared to be in pain, sporting grisly injuries or strangely contorted body parts. Inside the classroom, nobody spoke as they settled down, looking around at the shadowy, gruesome pictures. All the houses were required to take combat classes. Hence, the hall was filled with students wearing various color uniforms. When Michael and Wilkes entered the classroom, the students sitting in the front row stared at them, and immediately a look of scorn appeared on their faces. Wilkes got the worst of it because many just ignored Michael, but almost half of the students were staring at Wilkes with disgust, especially the elves. In the classroom, elves occupied the first 3 rows in the front. The humans sat behind them and dwarves and orcs occupied the tables before the last row. No one sat on the last row except for a few beastmen. Because the last row attracted less crowd, the row was pretty empty. Michael did not attend any schools, but still, he liked to sit on the last bench because, in his mind, that's where the legends would sit. A few human girls made space for Michael to sit beside them when he was walking to them. However, Michael ignored them and went to the last bench. Wilkes slid into the space to get to the place near the window. Michael placed the stack of books in his hand on the table. "Look, the elves you beat up last night." Wilkes nudged Michael's elbow. Michael looked at the front row where the elves were staring at him. When his gaze fell on them, they quickly looked away as though they were never staring at him with killing intent. Wilkes began rummaging through the books one by one. Every single book was a couple of inches thick and heavy. "You know how to read?" asked Michael. "I'm not illiterate thanks to Mentor Orc." "Mentor Orc? That's what we call him in the slums." No one knew his real name, or why he spent his time teaching the orphans in the slums. Wilkes was grateful to the orc, and Michael could see that in his eyes. They looked at the orcs who occupied the middle benches. Unlike the rest of the students, the orcs were sitting in silence reading their books. They did not seem violent at all despite their scary looks. The dwarves were the rowdy kids as they already started to tear the pages from the books and build ships, ducks, and all kinds of things and threw at the human girls. "You're gonna learn combat by reading books?" snickered Michael seeing Wilkes reading the thick black book. "Why else do we have this book?" Michael just shook his head before leaning back on the wall and stretching his legs out. He used his hands as pillows to cushion his head. The longer they spent without a teacher, the louder the classroom became. The elven girls were staring at the door eagerly waiting for their combat teacher. Creak. Almost half an hour past their class time, the door creaked open. Wilkes craned his neck to see the professor who was intimate with 6060 last night entering the classroom with a honey bun and a large mug. Gaia approached the teacher's table located at the front of the classroom before a large blackboard. She placed the mug on the table. "Get your asses up." Gaia slammed the table as the students were shaken by her. They immediately stood. To attract less attention, Michael too stood up. However, he was laughing inside so much. He couldn't wait to see Gaia's atrocities as the combat teacher. "Didn't anyone tell you to stand up and greet the teacher when they enter the classroom?" asked Gaia looking at the classroom. "Wait, you are the combat teacher?" the dwarves murmured. "You have a problem with that, you short fuck." The elves almost coughed up blood when they heard her yell at the dwarves. The dwarves were stunned beyond words. None of them expected to get yelled at like this. Many doubted she could be their teacher because she was too young and too unruly. "I am Professor Steinmeier. I came here to teach you noobs how not to get yourself killed. Now move your asses, we are going out." And just as Gaia took a step towards the door, an elven girl raised her hand. Gaia looked over her shoulder to see her silver-haired girl from the front row raising her hand. "What? Aren't we gonna start with Chapter 1? "Chapter 1? Frowned Gaia. She made herself to the front row and snatched the book from another elven boy. "Give me that." The students realized their professor was reading the combat book for the first time in her life by looking at the surprised look on her face. "What is this shit? You're gonna learn combat by reading books." "That's what he said," Wilkes mumbled. "Basics of combat. How to defend yourself, magic defense, sword theory, dual wielding, archery." Gaia rummaged through the book before throwing it away. Only morons would expect to learn the art of combat by reading books. Unless your pathetic plan is to kill your opponent by boring him to death, you have to move your asses and try to grasp what I teach you. Leave your fucking books and follow me. She turned again to walk towards the door when another elven girl raised her hand. "I swear to God, if you ask anything remotely related to the book, I will barbecue your ass and feed it to the giant eagles." The girl quickly put her hands down. Although the elves were not at all delighted to see a human teaching them the art of combat, they did not dare to show their arrogance to Gaia, because she held the position of the professor. Everyone stepped out of their tables and followed her in an orderly manner. "You know her?" asked Wilkes following Michael behind. "I saw you saw what?" Wilkes was surprised. "You know what? Where are we going? She seems like a crazy bitch." "No shit. I have a bad feeling about her." "LOL, she called you a short fuck, he. "We are the same height, you moron." The dwarves were bitching about Gaia while moving forward in the line. "She is interesting. I feel we are going to learn a lot from her." Compared to the dwarves, the orcs were such nice guys. They were praising Gaia regardless of how she acted. Michael was truly surprised to see how these orcs behaved. They seemed peaceful and friendly. Several minutes later, they reached the outskirts of the forest spanning to the west. The forest was dark and gloomy, and radiated an eerie feeling. The trees in the forest were malady brown. Grains of poison begrimed the bark and gleamed like witch dust. The smoky air and stifling atmosphere provided the perfect abode for those who worshipped the darkness rather than the light. In the dense shadows, spiders clutched their snare strings. Their webs shimmered like mesh steel dipped in silver. The forest looked primordial, dark, and gloomy as the dark forest where Michael lives. Centuries-old trees with sprawling limbs guarded the darkness, blotting out any sunlight. Bewailing sounds ghosted through the trees. Whether it was from prey or a predator, only the forest could tell. It was truly a place to make everyone's veins freeze over. "Form a circle," Gaia said, amplifying her voice with arch energy. "I assume you all have your weapons with you." The students nodded. Many were gawking at the forest. Their faces looked pale due to fear. "Your first lesson, Go to the forest and survive for 30 minutes. If you step out of the forest before the clock runs out, you will be on the roster to clean the latrines for a week. The students were stunned. Their jaws dropped a few inches as one elf shouted, "You can't do this. The Black Forest is forbidden to the students. You can't ask us to risk our lives." Gaia stomped the ground as a pebble rocketed to her hand. With a swift kick to the pebble, she sent the pebble soaring towards the elf. Arg! The elf screamed when the pebble broke his nose. The pebble hit the elf right between his eyes with deadly accuracy. "Go cry to your mommy, boo-hoo." The elf was too ashamed. His body shivered in anger as he had never been ashamed like this in his life before. He could not stand there anymore as he rushed away from the group. If you bitches are too afraid to roam around the safest areas of the forest, you shouldn't have come to Maze-Roth. This is a place for winners, not for cowardly losers. Are you winners or spineless losers? Michael wondered why she was trying to send the students into the forest. As expected, the students did not shout but mumbled the word winners meekly. What is she doing? From a distance, an elderly woman with a hunched back was looking at Gaia and the students. Headmistress Kayla stood beside her with a curious look on her face. Trying something new, I guess. Chapter 436. A mountain troll. The further they walked into the forest, the lesser they saw what was in front of them. The paths were barely passable. Wilkes could hardly keep up with him without losing sight of him. "Do you know how to climb trees?" asked Michael, stopping under a huge birch tree. "Because I'm a half-elf, you expect me to know how to climb a tree?" Wilkes misunderstood Michael. He didn't realize Michael was really going to get onto a branch on top, until Michael fired a metal hook from the Mark III bracers he was wearing around his wrist. In a blink of an eye, he was on top of the tree. Wilkes looked up at the tree with his mouth wide open. "Grab this tight." Wilkes grabbed onto the metal hook tightly. The next thing he knew, he was getting lifted off the ground. What the hell? Wilkes grabbed onto the tree to balance himself. He didn't even want to look down as they were standing too high from the ground. Whoosh! A gust of wind flew past his face. Why is he here? Wilkes turned to see Professor Steinmeier standing between them on the tree branch. She was staring at him. "Professor? What's your plan?" asked Gaia, ignoring Wilkes. After Wilkes went to sleep last night, Michael and Gaia talked about everything through the earpiece. Since Gaia just came up with the plan to send the students into the forest just this morning, Michael was in the dark. You know what they say when you want to hide a tree, hide it in the forest. In our case, they might have literally hidden the elf somewhere in this forest. "I needed an excuse to get you here," said Gaia. The way Professor Steinmeier put her hand on 60SIX's shoulder creeped out Wilkes. He couldn't believe how a professor of a prestigious academy like this could have a relationship with a student. The more he thought about it, the more he realized that they might know each other before coming to Maze-Roth. "I did some digging. This place hasn't been monitored by any arrays, so it's safe." Their conversation didn't make any sense to Wilkes. He felt pretty awkward and unsafe standing on the branch. Michael had already scanned their surroundings and made sure that they were not being watched. However, he did not want to deploy the drones and spiders in front of Wilkes. The point was to show Wilkes how powerful his mysterious employer is. "Keep digging. If the elf is here, I don't think we can find him without any help. Let's go searching." By giving the students the assignment to survive in the forest, she gave both Michael and her the chance to roam through the woods searching for the elf without raising any suspicion. "Should we take him with us?" asked Gaia. "Why not?" The next moment Gaia grabbed Wilkes by the back of his neck, before jumping down from the branch. "Arg, phuck!" Wilkes screamed. When they landed on the ground, Wilkes was breathing heavily as he was terrified. "You sure hell be of use to us?" Who are you people?" Gaia put her hand on Wilkes' shoulder. He could feel her gently squeezing his shoulder. "The people who could make you very rich or very dead." Arghhhhhhhhhhh. Suddenly a scream echoed through the forest. They immediately looked in the direction of the scream. "Huh? Do you feel that?" asked Wilkes, feeling the ground trembling. The tremble increased by the second to the point it felt like they were having a powerful earthquake. Argha! The screams of the students reverberated in the forest louder and louder. "Something's coming this way." Wilkes looked terrified as expected. Gaia took off from the ground like a bullet through the canopy. It didn't even take a minute before she came back with a pale face. "We have to go," she sounded alarmed. "What did you see?" asked Michael. "We don't have time, there is a fucking mountain troll coming this way." "What the fuck is a mountain troll?" Wilkes shrieked. "Come on, run." Gaia pushed Michael and Wilkes to run. She could fly away unlike Wilkes and Michael. To hide his ability to use arch energy, Michael had to avoid flying or using any spells. Hence his only way to escape was to run. "Didn't you read the fucking book they gave you?" Wilkes almost puked blood. She threw away the book and mocked them for having a combat book. She talked as though she loathed having books for combat class, yet at a moment like this, she was yelling at him for not reading the book. It was obvious that she read the whole book, unlike what she pretended. Although Michael did not know what a mountain troll is, he wasn't going to wait around. He started to run towards the castle as Wilkes ran behind him. Grrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrr face," Wilkes shouted while he was running. They ran as fast as they could without looking back. However, the trembling indicated that the mountain troll was getting close to them. The sound of trees shattering and cracking could be heard on top of the screaming sounds of the students. Seeing the light at the end of the forest gave Wilkes enough boost to push his body to the extreme. As a half-elf, Wilkes was born with extreme agility and speed. No human had ever outrun Wilkes. He was able to run through the woods as the forest was his playground thanks to his nimble body and the training he had since he was born. Nonetheless, he was barely able to keep up with 66. Surprisingly, this was 66 did not look like he was pushing his body to the limit. He seemed calm and collected regardless of the mountain troll chasing them. With a final push, Wilkes and Michael jumped out of the woods and reached the ground between the forest and Mazeroth Castle. They saw students running to the castle like a bat out of hell. Michael was neither in the shape to fight nor wanted to fight the mountain troll, which would defeat his purpose of staying anonymous. After putting some distance between the forest and them, they heard an ear-piercing thunderous roar coming from behind. They looked over their shoulder to see a 15-foot humanoid beast with gray skin, a bald head, and overgrown ears roaring to the sky. In its giant hands, it held a grown tree. The troll used the tree as a club. The troll's belly looked as though it just ate a few buffaloes whole. Even from a distance, the putrid smell that came from the mountain troll made Wilkes' face go green. "Run!" Gilrein's shout attracted Michael's attention as well as the other students. It was not like Michael planned to stay put and watch the troll. He was just momentarily stunned to see a mountain troll in real life. "Run, human. The troll is resistant to all magic attacks," Michael heard Gaia's voice in his head. Defeating a 15-foot giant without spells was impossible, even for him. He was strong but not strong enough to defeat the mountain troll. It would squash him like a bug if he picked up a fight with the troll. Besides, Michael had no intention to fight with the troll. The more he pushed himself, the harder it would be to prevent the third person from showing up. "Where the heck are the professors?" Wilkes asked while running with him. "Calm down, boy." Michael saw Gilrein approach the troll with his hands reached out. "What the fuck is he doing? It's not a dog he could tame." Wilkes growled, looking over her shoulder. The mountain troll surprisingly stopped roaring. It tilted its head, looking at Gilrein. The troll stood still as Gilrein slowly approached the troll, daring not to make any sudden moves. Yet, when he was just a few meters away from the troll's eyes flickered in red as it raised the tree in its hand high in the sky to squash Gilrein with it. Boom. The very next moment, a rainbow color beam shot out from the sky and landed between Gilrein and the mountain troll. The force of the beam pushed the mountain troll a couple of steps back. The bright light radiated from the beam made the troll close its eyes for a second. Michael knew it was a teleportation beam, and he wondered who would step out of the beam. Wilkes, on the other hand, expected a bunch of people or the guards or the professors to step out of the beam to kill the troll. However, who was there when the light beam disappeared was a girl in ocean blue robes. She was taller than average girls and wore clothes that screamed wealth. Her raven black hair fluttered in the wind. Michael could not see her face, but by the look of her arms, he could tell she was a trained warrior. Standing in front of the mountain troll, the girl never moved a muscle. She remained as calm as the sea. "Leave," the girl ordered Gilrine. Her authoritative voice shook Gilrine as his legs automatically started to move backward. Michael failed to see any magical fluctuations around her, which meant just like the students, she was too unable to use arch energy. Grrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrr in front of it. It once again raised the tree in its hand higher to attack the girl. Chapter 437. The Holy Maiden. Grrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrr However, the girl threw the blade aiming at the troll's chest. The blade impaled the mountain troll. The chain attached to the blade grew shorter and shorter as she used the blade as a pulley to reach the mountain troll. Boom! At this time, the mountain troll smashed the ground, creating a deep crater. The troll lifted off the tree to see there was no blood, and felt the girl running on its shoulder. Grrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrr girl. She was fast. In frustration and anger, the troll raised its club once again. This time, however, the girl fired the 2 blades in her hand, aiming at the tree in the troll's hand. She jumped off from the troll's shoulder, holding the 2 blades tight. She yanked the chains attached to her blades to bring down the tree on the troll's head. When she landed on the ground, the troll lost control of the tree in its hand. Bam! With a final yank, the girl brought the tree hard on the troll's head. Wilkes realized the tree was heavier than it looked when it split open the troll's head like an egg. The girl did not even turn back to see the troll's body as it hit the ground with a loud booming sound. The blades reached her hand. She put the blades into the sheaths hanging on her back. Michael had been fascinated by the girl. She was so badass. The battle with the troll ended before it even began. Only a battle-hardened warrior would be able to pull off what the girl just did. Moreover, she did not use any arch energy or spells. It was her raw strength. After Noah, this girl seemed to be a tougher opponent. He had a feeling that if they battled, he might lose the battle. Mythic! Gilrine cried out loud, running towards the fallen troll. The girl did not remain there but left the area. Several professors were running towards the mountain troll, while the prefects came rushing out to escort the students to their dorms. "Who is that?" asked Wilkes in shock. Michael stared at the girl disappearing into the castle. "I have a feeling we will meet soon," he said to himself before turning back to leave for their rooms. Gilrine in the distance knelt beside the mountain troll with tears gushing out of his eyes. His sobbing sound was loud enough for everyone to hear. Back in the castle, a hunched old woman walking with the support of staff was walking from one end to another in a spacious room. It was a large and beautiful circular room, full of weird little noises. Several gold instruments stood on spindle-legged tables, whirring and emitting little puffs of smoke. The walls were covered with portraits of old men and women, all of whom were snoozing gently in their frames. There was also a throne made of ice. The old woman's pace came to a halt when she saw the door creak open. Holy Maiden, the old woman's back already looked like it was bowing down due to her hunched back. Still, when she saw the girl, she bowed further down. "Bai Ning." The girl nodded before making her way to the throne. The air around the throne was chilly enough to freeze someone's bones. Still, the girl sat comfortably on the throne without showing any signs of pain. She seemed extremely comfortable and dominant. "I told you can address me as Rowena in private." The girl who stunned Michael was none other than Noah's elder sister. He had no idea that she was his big sister. The position of Holy Maiden was only given to a cultivator with extremely rare yang energy in their body. The position was held by no one for the last 3,000 years, until Rowena. Her successor, the previous Holy Maiden, was said to have reached the celestial stage and parted the world to the realm of angels. That was an incredibly dangerous Holy Maiden. Bai Ning stomped the ground with her staff. In her voice, one could notice the anger but also care. "I'm alive and the troll isn't," Rowena said with an expressionless face. "Kayla should put a leash on her professors." The woman hunched her way towards the table, flicked her wrist to take out the teapot set, and began to brew tea for the Holy Maiden. The tea she brewed was radiating smoke. However, the tea was not hot, it was freezing to the bone. If anyone else drank it instead of her, the weak would die in a matter of seconds, while the strong might live only when they warmed their body to an extreme temperature. "Have you located the primordial flames?" asked Rowena, taking sips of her bone-chilling tea. The spell has narrowed the search area, but we still need some time. What about the demon? Bai Ning waved her hands as a large bowl full of glistening blue liquid appeared on the table. The old woman poured a red liquid into the bowl and stared at the red liquid fuse with the blue liquid. Somehow the demon has been escaping my location spells. Then the devil is not alone. The sooner we find it the better, said Rowena. The world is not ready to accept the existence of higher realms. If they knew they had a demon walking among them, it would cause a massive panic wave. Demons, imposters, wars, famine, hunger. The great clans are supposed to fix these. They are becoming incompetent by the day. Bai Ning was a straightforward person. She had never held back her thoughts. Hence, she called the great clans incompetent in front of Rowena, whose brother is in one of the great clans, the Guardian Guild. And the other task, the air in the room became chillier. Bai Ning stopped looking at the bowl and turned her gaze towards Rowena. The Guardians should handle it, Holy Maiden. The Sky Hall shouldn't meddle with Dash. Bai Ning was interrupted by the sudden coldness she felt in her body. Rowena crushed the teacup in her hand before standing up from her throne. Someone targeted my family. I made it clear you find them and bring them to me. The old woman stepped backward in fear. Although she had higher cultivation, Bai Ning was afraid of the Holy Maiden. They couldn't measure Rowena's power using just cultivation stages. She was a being in the making to become a goddess. And Bai Ning did not want the wrath of a goddess to fall upon her. Rowena's eyes flicked in blue like a pair of sapphires. My family is more important than Sky Hall. You have 3 days to find the assassins. Bai Ning could barely breathe. She just nodded her head in fear and waited for Rowena to leave the room. The elders need to know this. After Rowena left the room, Bai Ning mumbled under her breath. Meanwhile, Gaia and Gilrine were standing in a cozy room. The room had a large fireplace, windows overlooking the training grounds and the battle arena, and a sparse stone-floored bedroom behind a concealed door. Headmistress Kayla was staring at both of them. Her eyes were like daggers cutting through Gaia and Gilrine. A mountain troll? What were you thinking, Gilrine? Gilrine was shivering. He was swallowing a mouthful of saliva in nervousness. And you, Professor Steinmeier? Kayla turned her focus onto Gaia. You should have been more careful. How the hell would I know this crazy brat was raising a bloody mountain troll in the Black Forest? Mythic, Gilrine mumbled under his breath. His eyes were still teary due to the loss of his beloved mountain troll. Kayla sighed. Explain yourself, Gilrine. Why were you keeping a mountain troll in the Black Forest? Gilrine looked awkward as he looked between Kayla and Gaia. Professor Steinmeier, seeing Gilrine hesitating to explain himself in front of Gaia, Headmistress Kayla realized that he must be keeping the mountain troll for a reason. Hence, Kayla first wanted to deal with Gaia and sent her away. I am not going to tell you how to conduct your classes, but please be more vigilant. Lives could have been lost today. I'll be more careful, Professor Kayla. Gaia nodded as she did not want to argue with Kayla when she was a frickin' imposter. Gaia turned back, showing her back to Kayla. Is that a peanut stuck in your beard? Asked Gaia. Before Gilrine could put his hands into his beard, Gaia helped him. Geesh, Gilrine awkwardly tried to smile after she helped remove the peanut. Little did he know that Gaia was not removing any peanuts, but putting a spider into his bushy beard. It was indeed risky, but she took the risk to know why Gilrine was keeping a mountain troll in the Black Forest. Since a lousy-mouthed man like Gilrine was keeping it a secret, she knew whatever the reason he was keeping a mountain troll, it must be something very important. Oh, Professor Steinmeier. Gaia felt a chill running through her spine. Her heart almost jumped out of her chest cavity when she heard Kayla calling just after she placed a spider into Gilrine's beard to spy on them. Yes, Professor Kayla. She turned back again, controlling any signs of nervousness from showing up on her face. You are on detention duty today. If anyone received detention, take them to the Black Forest and make them harvest Blackfoot mushrooms. Just do me a favor, don't let the students go past the Red Oaks. Human. Get yourself a detention. After leaving Headmistress Kayla's room, she contacted Michael through the earpiece. In the girls' dormitory of Warrior House, Victoria was practicing her sword skills by slashing and dashing a dummy while Edith was laying on the bed complaining. You know, we could have died. Most of us who are taking the combat class aren't warriors. We want to learn about defending ourselves, not how to get yourself killed. Edith was pretty shaken up by the mountain troll. They were one of the few students who saw the mountain troll too close and barely escaped. We have to complain about Professor Steinmeier to someone. You're just overreacting, Victoria calmly said. She was right. You can't learn combat by reading books. If we can't survive a mountain troll, we don't deserve to be here. Think about it. The next time when you're being chased by a mountain troll, you would not be as scared as now. Knock. 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 Their conversation was interrupted by someone who was knocking on the door outside. Who is there? Asked Edith with an irritated voice. Trouble, Victoria muttered. Chapter 438. Michael meets Victoria. We are here for 34. The youngster who was adorned in gray robes of house warriors said to Edith. Why? Asked Edith. The blonde-haired youngster smiled, but behind his smile, there was a slight irritation. Obviously, he did not know Edith's identity. If he had known she was the little sister of Layla Alden, he would have talked to her in a different tone. Brother 29 asked for her. Victoria put her wooden sword into the sheath hanging on the side of her waist. Who is 29 and why is he asking for her? Edith was annoyed by the group. They acted so smugly and she did not like their attitudes. If I am right, he must be a friend of the head prefect Elliot Watson. Victoria came to Edith's side, tying her hair into a bun and putting on the warrior's long coat. The young man nodded. She had noticed a senior student following her since she joined the House of Warriors. She was quite annoyed by him, and she decided to deal with them before they became trouble. You can stay here, Edith. I'll go with them. Edith immediately shook her head. If you are going, I'm coming with you, Victoria sighed. Edith did not seem like she could be convinced otherwise. Food, Edith. It was impossible to change Victoria's mind after she decided something. This time, she decided to go with these youngsters and Edith knew she could not be stopped. Since she wouldn't be able to change her mind, she decided to accompany Victoria. Lead the way, I have something special to give him, Victoria smiled. The youngster's heart skipped a beat because of her alluring smile. The cosmic energy running in her body was transforming her body as well as soul from inside. It had been turning her into an angelic beauty. The arrays surrounding the castle prevented the students from using arch energy. However, they were unable to do anything to the cosmic energy in her body. Hence, if she wanted, she could cast spells and the spells cast using the cosmic energy would be devastatingly powerful. Wonderful. The young man grinned ear to ear before leading them to 29, who was a lackey of head prefect Elliot Watson. They strolled through the corridors and came to the grand staircase, which was a massive stairway in Mazeroth Castle. The structure was mainly used to access each floor of the castle, including the dungeons. The concept of moving stairs was invented and built by the 6-star architect who built Mazeroth and Karjan Pavlovich, a 6-star blacksmith and one of the founders of Mazeroth. The staircases led from platform to platform and went as high as the 9th floor, where they came to an end. The stairs also had a knack for moving around the staircase chamber, usually when a student was walking up one of them. Like most walls in the castle, there were hundreds of portraits covering the walls surrounding the staircase, and it was considered an honor for the painted likeness of a cultivator to be mounted on the walls of the grand staircase. Some of these portraits concealed secret passages to other areas within the castle. After climbing several steps, the youngster stood in front of a portrait of a laughing chubby old woman. Rishta, password accepted. The lady smiled, waving her hand. Soon the portrait moved, revealing a secret passage. The passage was lit with torches rather than glowing orbs. Victoria silently followed the boys into the passage while Edith kept looking around nervously. She was not a warrior such as her sister or Victoria. In fact, she hated violence and killings, but she was not naive to expect a world without both. It took them exactly 5 minutes to reach the end of the passage. The passage opened up to a cozy room decorated with portraits, a fireplace, and exquisite vases containing ravishingly beautiful flowers. At the center of the room was a round table with 2 candles as well as various delicious foods. Welcome, young miss. A tall young man clad in golden robes walked out of the door on the other side with a bright smile on his face. The passage opening behind Victoria and Edith vanished into thin air. Edith was slightly panicked, unlike Victoria, who remained as calm as the sea. When he came closer to them, the 5 young men who led Victoria here stepped back. The young man bent his waist to give Victoria a royal bow. You look beautiful. I am Dash. Earl Decker. Victoria finished his sentence with a snicker. The young man was taken aback by surprise. The third son of the Decker family of Kingdom Marina of R. Victoria talked while gracefully walking around the room. Your family holds many mines, including the second largest gold mine. Your family had been trying to expand your mining business to the southern continent. Earl was having mixed feelings. On one hand, she looked so domineering and gorgeous. On the other hand, she looked kinda scary. He had no idea how the heck she figured out his identity, as he had never revealed it to anyone except Elliot. For years, your family has been trying to leverage the Senates using your identity as a student of Maze-Roth. Fools, humph. Victoria snickered. The Senates don't give a damn about Maze-Roth. Hence, your family chose to go with the next big thing, marriage. Earl frowned, hearing the scorn in her tone. She just called her family fools in front of his lackeys. But your fiancé disappeared the day before your marriage. Everyone believes she eloped with her mysterious lover, but you know the truth, don't you, Decker? I don't know. Don't bother. Yet again, Victoria interrupted his sentence. She finished strolling around the hall and came before him. You were pretty high that night, and when she told you no, you forced yourself on her and strangled her to death. Decker's mind went blank. No one knew what happened that night, yet somehow she knew exactly what happened. He started to have a bad feeling in his guts. Men like you are trash, and I don't like being stalked by trash like you. Plop. Victoria slapped Decker, shocking everyone in the room. His face immediately turned red. Edith could see Victoria's palm prints on his face. For a moment, the room fell silent. Then Decker lost his gentleman composure as he gritted his teeth. Bitch. Plop. She slapped him again. This time, her slap contained a sliver of cosmic energy. He was thrown into the table with the food he prepared to impress Victoria. The 5 young men behind them were in a stupor. They did not know what to do. Arg. Decker's world was spinning. His mind was in shambles due to the slap. He tried to pick himself up, but he was unable to do so. Victoria unsheathed the wooden practice sword. However, her target was not Decker but the 5 youngsters behind her. When she turned back with the sword in her hand, the 5 of them felt a chill. Miss, pimps, humph. Victoria snickered, closing the gap between them. The 5 young men could not raise their hands to hit her. They had no idea about Decker's history like Victoria. They thought they were helping him confess his newborn love to Victoria. Simply, they were not as bad as Decker. Pat. 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 However, Victoria gave no damn about their intention. She started to swing her sword, beating the crap out of the 5 youngsters. Hey, Edith tried to stop Victoria from beating them up. The youngster who led them here received more beatings than the rest of them. He had lost several teeth and was on the verge of losing consciousness. Watch out. Suddenly Edith noticed Decker rushing towards Victoria with a knife in his hand. Without even turning back, Victoria swung her sword back. Plap. The wooden sword hit Decker with enough force to make him stumble backward. The wooden sword almost cracked due to the force. Trash. Did you think him as weak as your fiancé? Victoria put her feet on Decker's neck. She pressed his neck with her feet, squeezing the life out of him slowly. Stop. Edith cried out loud. She came running to Victoria and shook her shoulders. You're gonna kill him. We will report this to Professor Steinmeier. She will deal with them. If you killed him, we will be expelled. Edith pleaded with Victoria to knock some sense into her. I don't give a damn about this place. I am here for the. Before finishing her sentence, Victoria stomped Decker's face, knocking him out cold. Primordial flame. Edith heard Victoria. At this point, Victoria didn't know she just gave a reason for the Dark Lord to turn the Decker family against Thusia. The next day night, Gaia was waiting on the grass field near the Black Forest border with Gilrine by her side. I am gonna give him another detention for making me wait. Gilrine scratched the back of his neck, hearing her threaten the student. There they are. Gaia couldn't help smiling seeing Michael. Her smile, however, immediately froze when she saw 2 girls behind him. Who the heck are you 2? And what are you 2 doing here? Gaia asked the 2 girls. One girl seemed warm and friendly while the red-haired girl looked cold and proud. The 2 girls were none other than Victoria and Edith. Victoria's mask prevented Michael from recognizing her, and she did not recognize him because of his beard and changed demeanor. Moreover, Victoria barely looked at him. For her, he was not even worth a look. We are here for the detention, Professor. For a moment, Gaia looked at them blankly. She was planning to venture into the forest with Michael to find the secret that Gilrine's mountain troll was guarding. Who gave you detention, girls? Asked Gilrine. Professor Lane, said Edith. Oh, Gilrine did not seem very surprised. Why? Asked Gaia in an annoyed tone of voice. He caught us outside our dorm after the curtain, Edith told Gaia. After coming back from Decker's little secret room, Professor Lane, the head of House Alchemists, caught the two girls and gave them detention for being late. Edith was grateful that he only gave them detention and did not expel them. However, Decker wasn't so lucky. He was packing his bags as they were speaking. Gilrine, can't I give them something else to do instead of bringing them with us? I don't think so, Professor Steinmeier. Professor, we won't give you any trouble, Edith said politely. We can protect ourselves, Professor, Victoria calmly said. We could use a warrior, Professor, in case we encountered a wild beast. In the corner of her eyes, she could see Michael nod. Damn it, okay, but you two must follow my orders no matter what without a question. Got it. Yes, Professor. Edith bobbed her head up and down while Victoria gave Gaia a small nod. Let's go. Finally, in the middle of the night, the five of them ventured into the Black Forest with each having a plan of their own. Chapter 439. Let me out. The smoky mist filling the forest gave out an ominous feeling. There wasn't a sound except for their footsteps. Gilrine led the way with Gaia while Michael walked last, following Victoria and Edith. Occasionally Edith made eye contact with him and smiled. Somehow he reminded of Noah to her. They were still on the outskirts of the forest as they did not go deeper into the forest. A few yards away, they saw a line of red oak trees. Students were forbidden to cross the red oak trees. Now you should feel the arch energy once again, said Gilrine, turning back to look at the three students. He was oblivious to the fact that except for Edith, both Michael and Victoria could use spells. The latter had the cosmic energy running through her veins, while for Michael, the system enabled him to use arch energy despite the arrays. Look around, you will find the mushrooms you're looking for, said Gilrine. Where are you going? Gaia asked Gilrine. Just making sure we are alone. I don't want any more surprises. Gaia could see the sweat drops forming on his forehead. It was obvious that he was lying. Considering Gaia wanted to follow him, she pretended to believe him. Good idea, she nodded. You three start picking the Blackfoot mushrooms. Gaia sat on a log as the three of them pretended to look around to pick the mushrooms. Thanks to the light orb conjured by Gaia, they were able to look around their surroundings. Edith stared at Michael picking the charcoal-colored mushrooms. As their name suggested, the mushrooms were in the shape of a human foot. Michael picked a bunch of mushrooms from the rotten logs and the ground surrounding the trees. Following Michael, Edith also located the mushrooms and collected the mushrooms. Victoria was just pretending to pick mushrooms. Gaia saw that but did not give any shit. You go look somewhere else. Edith saw Professor Steinmeier shouting an order at 66. Yes, Professor, he nodded before walking away from their spot, leaving the girls. Victoria and Edith sighed in relaxation, as they now only had to deal with Professor Steinmeier. If she left the area, they would be able to look for the primordial flames. Just as they hoped, a few minutes later, Professor Steinmeier left the area after telling them to stay put. Victoria waited until Professor Steinmeier's figure disappeared into the forest. She then flicked her wrist as a golden compass materialized on her palm. The single red needle kept spinning fastly before coming to a halt, pointing towards the east, the opposite direction Gilrine went. We are close to finding the flames. Come on. Victoria dragged Edith in the direction the compass was pointing. Meanwhile, Gaia and Michael regrouped on top of a banyan tree. They were far away from the girls. As far as they were concerned, the girls were collecting mushrooms as they were told. Michael was watching Gilrine navigating through the forest in the mirror in his hand with Gaia. Where is he going? Frowned Gaia. Let's find out. The duo shot out into the air like bullets. They avoided breaking branches or making any noises. Michael sent a drone in front for reconnaissance. Almost 10 minutes later, they landed on a tree branch. In the distance, they saw Gilrine standing under an oak tree. He was gawking around to see if anyone was following him. After making sure he wasn't followed, Gilrine took out a leather pouch from the inner pockets of his long faded coat. He poured out a white powder from the pouch. He drew a W on the tree using the white powder. The oak tree's branches moved as several glowing symbols appeared on the stem. Looking at the symbols, Gilrine sighed with ease. Thank the gods. Huh. All of a sudden, they heard a twig breaking nearby. Gilrine's body immediately tensed up as he started to look in all the directions. He then quickly wiped off the W on the tree. When he removed the symbol, the tree moved yet again to its previous state as the glowing symbols slowly faded away. Michael sent the drone in the direction of the noise. Fuck, Michael cursed. What? Asked Gaia. She did not seem very patient. It took great effort for her to stay put instead of jumping on Gilrine, knocking him out, and interrogating him to get the truth. It's Wilkes, said Michael. And he is not alone. Whoosh. Suddenly, a powerful gust of wind blew past them. Both Gaia and Michael almost lost their balance and fell off the branch. Gilrine was just about to take a step forward when he was knocked out by an invisible force. Gaia and Michael looked at Gilrine stumbling to the ground. For a split second, they saw a humanoid shape standing beside Gilrine before vanishing into thin air. Tell me you saw that? Frowned Gaia. She could swear she saw a shape beside Gilrine who lay on the ground without moving a muscle. See what happened to him. I'll deal with Wilkes, said Michael before leaping towards the next tree. Just like him, she leapt from the branch and landed near Gilrine. Before squatting down to check on Gilrine, she looked around vigilantly. Until she was sure that the humanoid shape was nowhere near her, she remained vigilant. Still being vigilant, she squatted down, putting her finger on Gilrine's throat. She felt the pulses, but his body was cold. Quickly, she picked up the leather pouch. Before standing up, she took out a needle from her space ring with a flick of her wrist. She injected the needle into Gilrine's neck. Stay down amidst the woods near the oak tree. Wilkes was bleeding on the ground. His face was all bruised up and a white bloody bone was sticking out of his forearm. Another youngster laid not so far from Wilkes, and compared to Wilax, he seemed to be in a much better state. I only wanted to kill one bitch. But now I have to kill a bitch and a maggot. It was Decker who just spoke these words. Yesterday, after Victoria beat the crap out of him, he was found by Professor Lane. In front of the most terrifying professors in Maze-Roth, Decker's lackeys crumbled, spewing everything they heard from Victoria. Professor Lane did not immediately take any action. He just gave Decker a truth pill and interrogated him. The pill prevented Decker from lying. Hence, he admitted to violating and killing his fiancée. Professor Lane expelled him on the spot and gave him 2 days to get his affairs in order before leaving Ukulun Realm. Decker had no affairs to settle except dealing with Victoria. Learning Victoria received detention, Decker was waiting for the 2 girls in the Black Forest when he saw Wilkes. Wilkes was already in a bad shape when he saw him. Since Wilkes too saw Decker, Decker planned to take him out before he informed the professors. Decker did not want the professors to find out what happened to Victoria and Edith. And here I thought coming to Maze-Roth was the best thing in my life. Wilkes coughed up blood. Weirdly, he was laughing for some reason. He always thought he was going to achieve something bigger, but now he realized his life was a bit anticlimactic. As his last wish, he just wanted to bring the gods' wrath on those elves who kidnapped him from 6DSIX's room and mercilessly beat the hell out of him. You're not going to beg for me to let you live? Decker asked while walking towards him with a crimson-red dagger in his hand. Nah, I prefer to die with a bit of dignity. Wilkes coughed up some more blood. Let me out. Suddenly a demonic voice reverberated in the area. The voice sent a chill running through Decker's body. He tensed as he frantically looked around. Tear him, piece by piece, broke his limbs. I want to feel his warm blood between my fingers, as the demonic voice sounded closer and closer to them. Decker heard twigs breaking. He conjured an orb of light to see a figure walking out of the shadows. Wilkes couldn't believe his eyes. It was 66, his buddy roommate, and who punched him in the face to get detention. Who are you? Go away, Michael growled. Seeing Wilkes bleeding on the ground reminded him of Jack's death. Although he avenged Jack, he could not save him. Michael sensed the third persona within him getting stronger, as though it was harnessing the power of darkness somehow. The last thing Michael wanted was to let the third persona take control of his body and wreak havoc in one of the most powerful places in the world. What the fuck are these prefects doing? Decker cursed the prefects for letting students sneak out to the Black Forest, which was supposed to be forbidden for them. Michael threw a healing potion to Wilkes. Leave once again, Michael warned Decker. Let me out. Michael's eyes suddenly flamed up. A set of pitch-black armor replaced his green robes for a second. Whoa! Decker was stunned to see the voice was actually coming from the student in front of him. What shocked him more was his eyes and the way his looks changed. For a few seconds, he grew taller. A scary-looking armor appeared covering his body from head to toe, and his eyes were shooting crimson-red flames. Buddy, I don't know what drugs you are on, but it's one spooky thing. What could one more body do to him? Thought Decker, hiding the crimson-red dagger behind his back. At this point, Wilkes was completely healed. He picked himself from the ground. I'm not going to. Michael closed his eyes, mustering all of his strength to control the third persona. Let you out. Oh, you will. You will. The demonic voice of the third persona once again growled. This time, it sounded as though it amused. Finally, Michael felt the urge to go berserk calming down within him, which was a sigh. The third persona went away. Human, we have a problem, he heard Gaia's voice in his head. Michael took a long breath. Yet again, his third persona put him in a heap of trouble. Both Wilkes and the new guy saw him transform, and if either of them told anyone in Amazaroth about this, his life would be at risk. Wilkes could be dealt with easily, unlike the new guy. We didn't see each other. Got it? Michael asked Decker. Decker took a few minutes to ponder and answer. Why not? Michael snickered. I don't believe you. The very next second, Wilkes saw 66 dashing at Decker. The next thing he knew, Decker was lying on the ground without moving an inch. The hell are you doing? Wilkes asked, looking at 66 tying Decker onto a tree. Go back to the dorm, Michael said to Wilkes before injecting a needle into Decker's neck. Chapter 441 The Origin of Dark Lord. If I go back now, I will get caught by Professor Lane for sure. He is roaming outside the castle for some reason. Wilkes shook his head. The host should bring him with you. Surprisingly, the system asked Michael to bring Wilax to the tree. Deep down, Michael too had a feeling that he might need Wilkes. Trusting the system and his instincts never went wrong. Hence, Michael chose to bring Wilkes with him to the tree. Follow me. Considering Michael planned to make Wilkes his subordinate, he did not have to worry about the half-elf betraying him. Plus, Michael didn't think Wilkes would double-cross him, as he stood to gain nothing by betraying him. What about him? Asked Wilkes, pointing at Decker. Leave him. Wilkes didn't feel bad for leaving Decker alone. He barely knew the guy, yet he tried to kill him. If it was up to Wilkes, he would expel him before beating the crap out of him. Wilkes had no idea that Decker had been already expelled, and he was there to kill the ones responsible for his expulsion. When Wilkes and Michael reached the oak tree, Wilkes' eyes went wide. They looked as though they were about to pop out of their sockets. What the heck? Is that Gilrine? What happened to him? He frantically asked. As he was about to run towards Gilrine, he saw Professor Steinmeier stepping out of the shadows. Professor Steinmeier, Wilkes' body went rigid in shock. What the fuck is he doing here? Asked Gaia, staring at Wilkes with murderous intent in her eyes. I'll tell you later. You said we have a problem. Rather than explaining what was the problem, Gaia walked to the tree, grabbed a handful of powder from the leather pouch, and drew the symbol W on the tree. Wilkes looked at the tree moving with his mouth wide open. He couldn't believe a giant tree such as this was moving like a puppet. It was too magical. Soon, dark lines appeared on his forehead because he was able to read the glowing runes, unlike Michael or Gaia. That's it, nothing happens. It will stay like this, and after 2 minutes, the tree will move back to normal. Gaia punched the tree in frustration. System. The system requires 500,000 badass points to disarm the runes. Since the host has only 160,000 badass points, the system could loan you the remaining amount for just a 40% interest rate, frowned Michael. But when he turned to look at Wilkes, he saw Wilkes staring at the runes as though he recognized them. Because Wilkes was a runemaster, Michael realized he might have some ideas, and he might not need the help of the system. Can you read them? I already did. Gaia finally stopped punching the tree and turned her gaze towards Wilkes. What does it say? Tell us. Gaia dashed at Wilkes. She grabbed him by his collar and lifted him off the ground. Professor, say it. Wilkes swallowed a mouthful of saliva. He had no idea why the professor was behaving like this. He even began to doubt if she was a professor at all. Put him down. Michael placed his hand on her shoulder, trying to calm her down. For him, it was just finding a solution for his third persona problem. But for her, it was about finding her mother. He knew how much her mother meant to her. Wilkes breathed heavily when his feet touched the ground. What does it mean? Asked Michael. Wilkes took a deep breath. They are ancient runes. They roughly translate into, the blood of evil shed by innocent opens the gate of darkness. What the fuck is that? Gaia threw her arms in the air. It seemed like a riddle, and Gaia hated the riddles so much, especially when her mother's life might depend on this riddle. The blood of evil shed by innocent opens the gate of darkness. Does it mean something to you? Asked Gaia after hearing Michael mumbling what Wilkes said under his breath. Stay here. In a blink of an eye, Michael disappeared, turning himself into a bolt of lightning. He came back dragging Decker with him. Gaia was confused. Shit, who is this? Wilkes. Michael looked at Wilkes. Maintaining the eye contact, he bent down to pick up the crimson-red daggers in Decker's sheaths. Kill him. Wilkes was startled by Michael's words. What do you mean kill him? You have been bullied your whole life. This world will never stop treating trash, until you choose to change the world. Your whole life, you've been hiding and fearing for others. Even coming to Mazorth didn't change your life like wanted. But Wilkes clenched his fist. Although his words made sense, Wilkes could not get himself to take a life. You can be a maggot as they've been calling you, or choose to man up and change your life around. If killing him would open whatever it is, let me kill him. Gaia tried to snatch the daggers, but she couldn't. Yes, let her do it. Why do you want me to kill him? I am not a killer. Michael was losing his patience. He was not in the mood to deal with Wilkes' naiveness. In this world, you can only be either a prey or a predator. Man up, kill him. And let me change how this world works, Michael said, gritting his teeth. Still, Wilkes shook his head. Michael lost his cool as he grabbed Wilkes by his neck. His eyes flickered dim red as the dark armor slowly started to appear on his body, replacing the green robes. Let me make this simple for you. Kill him, or I will kill you and everyone you know in the slums you grow up. Wilkes' heart skipped a beat seeing his transformation. His voice sounded creepy and demonic, and his eyes were burning as though someone set them on fire. You don't understand what's at stake here, Wilkes. Gaia tried to knock some sense into Wilkes. If he doesn't do this, the whole world will suffer. Let him see his people suffer first. Give Azazel the order. Michael turned his fiery gaze towards Gaia. Stop. Finally, Wilkes shouted. He was an orphan, but he could not let the innocent people in the slums suffer. His hands shivered as he grabbed the daggers in Michael's hands. Don't hurt them, Wilkes stuttered. He was too afraid to curse at 66. The fear had clutched his heart thanks to the fear toxin Wilkes inhaled. Kill him. Gaia saw the runes losing their glow. She quickly moved towards the tree and drew the symbol once again. On the other hand, Wilkes clutched the dagger tightly. His body was shivering uncontrollably. Wilkes breathed heavily. He wanted to shout for help, but no words came out of his mouth. He saw no way to escape from this situation. His mind could not think of a plan. Do it. Michael growled in his demonic voice. Slowly, Wilkes raised the dagger above his head. He clenched the dagger with his two hands. Kill him. This time when he heard the shout, Wilkes brought down the dagger, penetrating Decker's chest. The blood sprayed out of the wound. The beating heart of Decker pumped out the blood forcefully. In a couple of seconds, Wilkes' pale face was painted red with Decker's blood, and the ground beneath them was completely soaked in thick blood. Michael turned his head and saw the blue runes slowly turning red. The blood on the ground began to gather into a puddle. From the blood puddle appeared several extensions made of blood. Soon these extensions moved towards the tree like snakes. The ground beneath them trembled as they started to hear something heavy crack open. The center point of the oak tree slowly split open, revealing a spinning vortex. Whoosh! The vortex sucked in Decker's body. After his body disappeared into the vortex, Wilkes felt the pull. Gaia did not wait for the vortex to pull her in but dashed into it. Michael grabbed Wilkes by his collar and threw him into the vortex before he himself dashed into the portal. Michael had no time to wonder what was on the other side of the portal. The third persona had already taken control of half of his body, and it took everything in him to keep it from completely manifesting. After the trio entered the portal, The tree returned to its normal state. And just before the last rune faded away, the humanoid shape made of leaves appeared in front of the tree. A split second after, the blood on the ground completely vanished along with the humanoid figure. Somewhere else in the Ukulun realm, Michael, Gaia, and Wilkes were free falling. Ah! Wilkes screamed out loud when he opened his eyes and realized that he was falling from the sky. Suddenly he felt a hand grab his shoulder, and the next thing he knew, he landed on the ground safely. He let out a heavy breath. His vision slowly cleared as he didn't feel as terrified as before. He closed his eyes tight and opened them again, hoping everything that happened was just a nightmare. When he opened his eyes, he saw 66 and Professor Steinmeier walking in front of him towards a lone tree. He was not in his scary black armor as just a few moments ago. Wilkes looked around to see where he was. As far as he could see, there was nothing but floating mountains. The place he was standing on was paved, and the only thing in the vicinity was the lone tree on the edge. While walking towards the lone oak tree, Gaia's body was shivering. The closer they got to the tree, the more they could make out a face in the tree. The god of darkness. Suddenly a calm voice reverberated in the area. "I've been waiting for you for 3,000 years. Gaia looked closer at the tree to see the face talking. Finally, she had found the dark elf in the tree her mother asked her to find. She felt like she got a step closer to finding what really happened to her mother. Chapter 442 The Origin of Dark Lord Michael approached the tree, while scanning the surroundings. His environmental scanning did not find any intruders or living beings. "Who are you?" asked Michael, frowning. It was evident that this figure is the same one Gaia's mother was talking about. The dark elf in the tree. They should have known mortal arrays are no match for a god. The figure merged with the tree, amused. "I am Eladir, one of the founders of Order of Death and the man who created the ritual to open the gates to the Void Realm." The man spoke. Michael was calm, but when he heard what the dark elf said next, he was startled to the core. "You may know the Void Realm as Earth." Michael halted his pace, staying still in shock. No one except Gaia knew about Earth, and that was because he told her. Except for her, only the system knew his origin. Michael stared at the dark elf to see how powerful he was, which resulted in another surprise as the dark elf was only at the body refining stage. "God of darkness?" Wilkes gasped, hearing the dark elf. He couldn't simply believe 66 is a god, as the figure stuck to the tree claimed him to be. "You know about Earth." Since the dark elf clearly knew about the Earth, Michael did not try to conceal his secret. "I know everything about you, Lucifer. I know you've been in war with yourself. A version of yourself, more precisely." Eladir kept shocking Michael with his knowledge. Gaia remained silent, letting Michael get an answer for his problem from the dark elf. Then, she would inquire the elf about her mother. Michael, on the other hand, completely ignored the existence of Wilkes. He approached the elf and stood a couple of meters before the tree. "You came here looking for a fix for your problem, didn't you, Lucifer?" asked Eladir. "Tell me, how do you know about Earth?" Eladir looked at him for a few moments in silence. "Earth is the grandest and most secure prison in the entire universe, Lucifer. It was built to imprison and prevent you from coming here. Yet you are here. All those lives lost for nothing." Eladir sighed. Michael clenched his fist. He couldn't process the information given by the dark elf. His mind was in complete chaos. If what Elidie said was true, his entire life was a sham, and those who imprisoned him were punishing him for something he didn't even think of doing. Gaia was stunned as her mind went blank. She came to his side and placed her hand on his shoulder to reassure him, because she knew his entire world was collapsing. "What about my parents on Earth? They were imprisoned too?" Michael's voice stuttered. For some reason, he felt a lump in his throat. It was too much for him to rationalize and process. He even started to sweat. To be honest, he wanted to sit down. "Have you met your parents on Earth?" asked Eladir as Michael slowly shook his head. "You have no parents on Earth. Your parents are from this world." Michael's heart skipped a beat. "Tell us who they are," asked Gaia immediately. "That's an answer only time can give you." Only silence filled the surroundings for a few moments before Michael opened his mouth. His eyes already began to flicker in crimson red. "Who imprisoned me?" asked Michael coldly. Gaia felt the air around her getting chilly. Soon, the sky started to turn darker and darker. The wind howled ominously, warning them about the approaching storm. The same people who imprisoned me, Skyhall. Every time the elf opened his mouth, he stunned Michael and Gaia. It took them several minutes before speaking again. Skyhall? You must be thinking the Guardians are the bad guys, cute, Elidor chuckled. Wilka stood alone listening to their conversation. He was pretty freaked out by the sudden change in weather and the crimson-red eyes of 66. His eyes were glowing and red as though they were rubies. I want to know everything. Michael's entire world collapsed in front of him. Everything he knew and believed was said to be nothing but smoke and mirror. He was sick of being in the darkness and wanted to know everything about him and his origins from the dark elf. The least I can do for you is give you some answers before I wither away. Elidor sighed as he began to narrate everything from the beginning, starting from 3,000 years ago. The story began 3,000 years ago with Chiojin ascending to the throne of Holy Maiden. Michael didn't know that Chiojin, one of the founders of Mazorth, was the Holy Maiden of Skyhall. She was a 6-star Rinmaster, and according to Elidor, at the peak of her power, she invented an array that let her soul travel through time. Her time travel adventure turned out successful, but not without a cost. The entire Skyhall was thrown into chaos when their beloved goddess returned from the future half-dead. She was an immortal stage cultivator, yet something or someone almost took her life. She was never the same afterward. To let the world know about the approaching danger, she built another array with the help of her friends to let the Skyhall see the approaching calamity. The elders of Skyhall, and a selected few witnessed a glimpse of the future. Elidor was one of the elders of Skyhall who watched the world fall into darkness. Chinjio called the future world the Dark Realm. There was neither sun nor moon in the Dark Realm. There was only utter chaos and darkness. People of the Dark Realm were stripped of their free will. They lived and died as mere cattle. In the world filled with darkness, only one stood atop and ruled the Dark Realm with an iron fist and dread, the Dark Lord. Chinjio was terrified of his power. She claimed even the gods left the universe fearing the Dark Lord's powers, and the only way to stop the Dark Lord was to imprison the Dark Lord before he reached the pinnacle of his power. Elidor and the other elders were aware of Earth, but they did not know how they created a void universe. There were records of it. Chinjio's words turned out to be the prophecy, and each of the selected few who witnessed the glimpse of the future created a great clan of their own to protect the world and prepare for the great war against the Dark Lord. What they witnessed pushed the Skyhall to take drastic measures. They scoured the world for the Dark Lord. They massacred anyone who slightly deviated from the path of good, in the name of the greater good. After the disappearance of Chiojin, the once protector of the world slowly turned into something they were supposed to fight against. Some believed Chinjio died due to the injuries she suffered during her time travel. Some believed she went back to the future again, and some believed she ascended to the realm of angels after reaching the celestial stage. No matter the reason behind her disappearance, it resulted in Skyhall building prisons, mass graves, torturing thousands of people, and wiping out entire races they deemed evil. Elidor along with some other elders couldn't stand and watch doing nothing. They defected the Skyhall, but not before Elidor finished a ritual that would open the gate to Earth. Elidor and the others saw the Skyhall turning the world into the Dark Realm without even the Dark Lord. Hence, they worked in the shadows to put a stop to the madness. As time went by, they were called the Order, and when the Skyhall found out about them, they branded the Order as the Order of Death. Although the Order of Death was powerful, they couldn't stop Skyhall from capturing the founders of the Order, including Elidor. Elidor believed some escaped, but he wasn't fortunate. The Skyhall marked him as the traitor and chained him to the tree, chaining him with powerful curses. He was to suffer all the eternity alone. And 21 years ago, I felt the portal to the earth open and I knew they found you. How do they know for sure it's the Dark Lord they found? Asked Gaia. She was burning with overwhelming rage for what they did to Michael. Chinjio left the Skyhall the means to locate the Dark Lord. 19 months ago, I felt the gate to Earth open again. Only this time, no one was sent to Earth. On the contrary, you came here. This means Chinjio was right. It was you who sent to Earth 21 years ago, and there is no mistake. You are the Dark Lord. The armor of Lucifer had completely covered his body along with the cloud of darkness. He transformed into a complete Lucifer form without his control. My parents, what happened to them? Michael growled. Gaia felt a chill as his voice had never sounded more demonic and cold like this before. The ritual required your ties to be cut off. The strongest tie of them all is the bond between you and your family. To cut the bone, your family had to give you away willingly, and since they sent you to Earth they didn't abandon me, Michael interrupted as the area grew darker. Wilkes was shivering seeing what was happening in front of him. He was in total shock. If he had seen a way to escape, he would have already called for help because it was too freaky. They gave me away willingly. Michael looked up at the sky. Tears rolled out of his eyes, and seeing the tears, Gaia couldn't hold back her tears. This was the first time she had seen him shed tears. In the corner of his heart, he always believed his parents didn't abandon him, but forced him to leave him for some reason. His belief was shattered as he realized they gave him away willingly. If the Sky Hall was capable of genocide, they were also capable of torturing his parents. What if they killed his family? Gaia asked Eladir. Gaia would rather hear his family was killed than give him away willingly. She knew how much pain he was going through. The ritual doesn't work that way, and killing his family would not cut the ties. The ritual was extremely powerful and volatile. Any mistakes or changes would have resulted in a calamity. What about Abras, the owner of this body? Is it a coincidence I ended up in him? Michael did not ask more about his parents. He got his answers. There was no need for him to know more. They willingly gave him away, and as much as it hurt him, at least his heart could be at peace. Chapter 443 The Origin of Dark Lord 3. Nothing is a coincidence when it comes to you, Lucifer. Have you ever wondered that out of millions of bodies, why you ended up in this particular body? Asked Eladir. Although the Dark Elf seemed to know a whole lot about him, Michael didn't think he knew about the system's existence. Under no circumstance, Michael would reveal the existence of the system. Therefore, instead of telling the system chose this body, Michael shook his head. He was oblivious to the truth behind why the system chose Abras. There was more than just a resemblance behind the system's decision to choose Abras. It's because this body belongs to you. Only souls could pass through the gates to Earth. It seems like a piece of your soul remained in your infant body. Eladir was not only a 5-star rune master, but also an expert in souls. He trained his mind and eye to see through a person as nobody could. Therefore, Eladir could see the broken soul inside Michael. You're saying he and the owner of the body are the same person? Asked Gaia while Michael remained, uttering no words. It was too much for his mind to process quickly. However, the more he thought about it, everything started to make sense. You are him and he is you. The two pieces of the soul are in peace. Eladir paused to look at both Gaia and Michael for a minute. Unlike the third piece, Eladir could see the third piece of the soul is at war with the other two pieces. It was preventing the two pieces of the soul from merging together. Something was amiss, but Eladir was unable to see what. Tell me how to fix him. Gaia rushed to Eladir. She grabbed what seemed to be his shoulder. However, Gaia could only feel wood, not flesh. Soon, the green leaves of the oak tree slowly began to dry and turn brown. The tree was withering. What's happening? Gaia stepped back. My time is up. I used what was left in me to summon you here. I am sorry I couldn't help you more, Lucifer. The path you walked Eladir stopped talking as half of the tree withered completely. System, I need him. The system has found several curses on him that are binding him to this oak tree. The system also found an interference. It's temporarily blocking the curses and letting his soul depart from his body. In other words, he is successfully dying. I can see that, Michael grumbled. There are two ways to save him. One way will cost you 500,000 badass points. It will save him along with his body. The second option has several complications. First, it requires 180,000 badass points. Second, the host will have to find a new body as the system won't be able to save his body. Third, the body needs to be found in 5 minutes tops. Lastly, the body needs to be at least 10% genetic match with his dark elven race, and the body must not have any wounds when the soul enters the body. Michael listened to the system list all the requirements. For a few moments, he looked at Eladir and turned his gaze towards Wilkes, who was still in shock. I want a loan of 100,000. Shouldn't it be 340,000 points? The system asked with a surprised tone. At the moment, Michael had 160,000 badass points. Hence, to get 500,000 badass points, he needed 340,000 badass points as the system suggested. Do as I say. Take 100,000 badass points and buy the Soul Eater skill. Shit. The system was stunned. If the system had a face, the face would have shown an expression of utter shock. The acute pain in his head had appeared again. However, compared to the pain in his heart, the pain in his head was futile. Ding, the host has successfully acquired level 1 Soul Eater. The skill Soul Eater can be integrated with Energy Devour for 2,000 badass points. Does the host dash? Visit to L-World. COM discover_new novels. Yes, Michael interrupted the system. After the system integrated the new skill he bought, it showed him his status in front of his eyes. Host, Michael cultivation level. Core strengthening stage, level 4 experience points. 70,000/600, 000 badass points. 160,000, 40,000 badass points loan. Skills and spells. Wine Blast, LVL 6 responsive shield. LVL 8 environment scanning. LVL 6 ignitia. LVL 8 lightning dash. LVL 6 energy devour. LVL 2 soul eater. LVL 1 death range. LVL 3 eyes of darkness, normal. Can sense the cultivation level of others' eyes of darkness, Lucifer. Can sense the cultivation level of others, can see through. Illusions cloud of darkness, Lucifer. Weak-willed enemies will lose their courage completely and surrender. Death range will be 50% more powerful, and if activated in darkness, the host's cultivation level will be boosted 4 levels up regardless of the stage barrier. Wordless spellcaster, Lucifer. In full Lucifer form, the host just has to think of the spell to cast it. Techniques. Swords of Destiny. 98% Mastery Ring of Fire. 88% Mastery Serpent Maga. 97% Mastery Occupation. Core Disciple of Sunrise Sect, the Guardian of Sunrise Sect, Lord Lucifer of the Abyssal, the Dark Lord King of Bradford. This_content is taken from L-World. Com status. Healthy goals. Control the world, rebuild the Order of Death. Utility function. Banker. LVL 5 ratio. 1,000 gold coins. 40 badass points. Runic teleportation, X-ray vision. Also integrated with Eyes of Darkness. Wealth. 15 million gold special trait. 5-star alchemist, 4-star inventor subordinates. Gaia, warrior, loyalty level 100%. Raylene, 5-star chef, loyalty level 99%. Arya, assassin, loyalty level 68%. Heimberg, warrior, loyalty level 45%. Maxine, warrior, loyalty level 98%. Tiberius, warrior, loyalty level 55%. Sadie, loyalty level 40%. Ricky, loyalty level 98%. The Silent Reaper crew, pirates, loyalty level 90%. Base of operation. Sunrise Sect, the Abyssal, the Crypt Kingdom of Bradford familiars. Nightmare, Forest Dragon, Fedora, 3-headed Hydra. Michael noticed the bump in loyalty levels. But he was concerned about more pressing issues than loyalty levels. Soul Eater was a skill he was eyeing for quite some time to buy. He was in no rush to buy the skill until now. The reason he didn't buy earlier was that the price of Soul Eater was 60,000 badass points. Among all his spells, this was the deadliest and most powerful. Visit L-World. COM, for the best no_vel_read_ng experience. At level 1, the Soul Eater can be only used on cultivators who are at least 2 stage below the host. Prepare to save Eladir. Host, what are you planning to do? The system had already guessed what he was about to do, yet the system asked the question because it was unbelievable. Quite honestly, the system didn't think he would do that. The surroundings started to move again after he exited the system, as though they were being paused. Sporting his complete Lucifer form, he walked towards Wilkes. Wilkes was stepping back in fear. The closer Lucifer got to him, the faster his heart beat. Wilkes shivered as he looked up at Lucifer's crimson-red fiery eyes. Seeing him in his full armor, Gaia had a feeling that Michael was planning something. Pull another miracle, human, she prayed in her mind. You've heard him. Michael began to talk to Wilkes in his demonic voice. Now you may have an idea of what I am capable of. Bend your knees and swear your loyalty to me. I will give you the blood of those who hurt you as one of the many gifts I have in store for you. Wilkes almost stumbled and fell on his back hearing Michael. Blood? I don't want any more blood on my dash. Wrong answer, Michael interrupted by grabbing Wilcast's neck. As expected, Gaia saw the half-elf being lifted off from the ground. The next moment, she saw the dark cloud of smoke shrouds Michael enveloping Wilca's. All of a sudden, Wilcast's body went rigid and his mouth opened wide. A bright stream of white smoke rushed out of Wilcast's mouth and went straight into Michael's mouth. Wilcast's body kept twitching violently. In a few blinks of an eye, his body stopped twitching. System hayraced the body for Elidar. Soul transferring initiated. Gaia noticed a beam of light being shot out from Michael at Elidar. She felt the air being sucked out by the light beam. She took several steps back, looking at the tree withering more and more. In a few moments, the tree had crumbled into nothing but ashes. When she looked at Michael, Wilcast's body moved yet again in his hand. Wilcast's eyes rolled back in his eye socket and stayed that way for a few moments. Michael put Wilcas on his feet again as the half-elf gasped for air suddenly. I am alive, Gaia heard Wilcas. She came to Michael's side as Wilcas kept looking at his arms and body as though he had never seen them before. Ding. Congrats to the host for killing a body-strengthening stage, level 2 cultivator. The reward is 10,000 experience points as well as 300 badass points. The Soul Eater has absorbed the soul of Wilcas. The host has received 20,000 experience points. The more tainted the soul is, the more the experience points, the system sounded in his mind. Absorbing the souls without battling wasn't the Soul Eater's powerful ability. What made the skill powerful and deadly was its power to turn the souls into experience points. As the system suggested, the more tainted the soul is, the more the experience points. In other words, absorbing an evil person's soul would give him more experience points than the soul of a lesser evil. You absorbed his soul, Gaia heard Wilcas, but something told her that the half-elf in front of her is not Wilcas. The Soul Eater was supposed to be used with Soul Stare, which would make the victim see their past transgressions. And it inflicts upon the individual the same pain they have caused to others. The Soul Stare skill required 300,000 badass points and soul strengthening stage level 8. He was naive and a spineless coward. He would rather live like a maggot than take the chance to change his life. I have no place for a person like him. New_chap_ters or pub_lished on L World. See, Elidar was truly stunned at the display of Lucifer's power. The curses put on him were unbreakable, yet Lucifer did not only lift the curse, but he also transferred his soul into another body. He had never heard of or seen a person who could perform such a feat. Now tell me how to deal with this third piece of the soul. Chapter 444 The Origins of Dark Queen. It was supposed to be daytime in the pocket dimension created to imprison Elidar, but because of Michael, the night had fallen early. Elidar was still familiarizing himself with his body. The last time he moved his limbs was almost 3,000 years ago. How do I defeat this third piece of the soul? Asked Michael. His mind was still processing everything Elidar had said. Yet, Michael focused on fixing the imminent problem first. The flame of vengeance was burning like wildfire inside him. He wanted to sacrifice everyone who wronged him in the past, present and future. To achieve his vengeance, he needed to be in his best shape both physically and mentally. The third persona made being sane a difficult task recently. Hence, he wanted the third persona gone. You can't, Elidar shocked Michael and Gaia with his answer. It is a piece of soul, but it's your piece of soul nonetheless. You can't defeat yourself. I assume you have a solution? Asked Michael. Luckily Elidar nodded. After seeing the glimpse of the Dark Lord's power, Elidar was convinced that the Dark Lord would be able to destroy the Sky Hall. Defeating the Dark Lord would be near impossible, but if he stuck with the Dark Lord, he might be able to deviate the Dark Lord from destroying the entire world, and turn this world into the realm of darkness they saw in the future. Compared to the Dark Lord, the Sky Hall seemed more evil. Over the years, he had seen the Sky Hall do all kinds of forbidden acts in the name of the greater good. They were not directly done by Sky Hall but their puppets. Moreover, Elidar wanted nothing but to see Sky Hall destroyed. How would anyone feel if someone imprisoned them for 3,000 years? Over the years, the elders of Sky Hall tortured him and exterminated his entire bloodline. They hunted his descendants and family like dogs. He wanted revenge, and the one person who was capable of destroying the Sky Hall was the Dark Lord. First, We have to extract the piece of the soul out. In the soul state, it can't be defeated, so we need to cage the soul into a vessel. The vessel needs to be extremely powerful to contain the soul. Finding the perfect vessel and caging the soul into the vessel will be the easy part. Elidor paused for a moment and went on. In physical form, the soul would be manyfold powerful. You need another being strong enough to weaken it. Then you can absorb the soul piece and it will be merged with the other soul pieces, and your soul will become whole once again. Elidor couldn't see the expression on Lucifer's face through the mask. After remaining silent for a few moments, Elodie said, "The question is, who is powerful enough to defeat a piece of the Dark Lord's soul? We have to find a vessel to contain the soul," Michael said to Gaia and turned his gaze back to Elidor. Try the L world. Com platform _ for the most advanced _ reading experience. Tell me, how do we extract the soul piece out of me? Gaia already guessed who was in his mind to face the soul piece. Surprisingly, Elidor also knew the person who was in Michael's mind. Thanks to this new body, I can now create an array to help you. But we can't create the array here. We should do it in the Black Forest during the full moon night. As he said, Elidor walked towards where the oak tree was. Elidor squatted near the tree and grabbed a handful of mud from the ground. He threw the mud in the air as the dust formed a ring in the air. Soon the circle transformed into a vortex just like the one they used to come to this place. After you, Elidor gestured at Michael to walk into the vortex first. Michael looked around as the black armor disappeared from his body. The green robes of house alchemists once again covered his body. When they stepped out of the vortex, they saw Gilrine still lying on the ground unconscious. Elidor took a deep breath as though he was tasting the air and freedom. Tell me, what do you know about my mother, Adelia Ashton? Gaia didn't even think that he has been imprisoned in the pocket dimension for 3,000 years. She couldn't hold back as she desperately wanted to know what happened to her mother. The paralyzing agent mixed with the knockout potion would keep Gilrine unconscious for at least 12 hours, unless he received the antidote. He was in no rush to wake up Gilrine. Hearing Gaia's question, Elidor turned his gaze from the night sky to her. A few seconds later Elidor heard Gaia. He frowned. He stared at Gaia from top to bottom. He walked towards her, looking her directly in her eyes. You have her eyes? Elidor's voice broke as his eyes watered. Michael could see the great pain in his eyes. Her? You saw my mother? Elidor shook his head. Your ancestor, one of the founders of the order, Edwina Wraith. You have her eyes. Elidor gently brushed Gaia's face. She didn't move or take his hands away because deep down, she too felt a connection with Elidor. Ashton is an alias used by her. I guess her descendants used this alias as their family name. Elidor smiled slightly. Tell me, what do you know about my mother? Where is she? Is she alive? Asked Gaia with the hope of finally getting an answer about her mother. Michael didn't interrupt. He remained silent, letting her ask all the questions she wanted while checking out his surroundings. Besides, he himself was in utter shock. Visit to L World. Com discover _new novels. How is my family related to your order and him? She pointed at Michael. You don't know? Elidor was surprised. Gaia shook her head. Your ancestor Edwina was a founder of the order. She served the order and the Dark Lord. During the last stages of the war, she made sure the elders who were essential to finding the Dark Lord could escape the Guardians and the Sky Hall. When everyone was afraid of the Dark Lord, she was the only one who believed that he might be what this world needs. So together we came up with a rune that would pass the secrets about the order and the responsibility of the wraiths to her descendants. Gaia's face was blank as she didn't know how to react. She thought her mother had somehow meddled with the order. Yet she never expected her entire bloodline would be the servants of the Dark Lord and her ancestor was one of the founders of the order. When a wraith dies, a piece of their soul would be left behind to pass on the secrets to the next of kin. If you hadn't seen it, that means your mother is still alive. Mom. Gaia's eyes watered up, but this time, it was filled with tears of joy. She couldn't stop herself from grinning. My mother is alive? Asked Gaia, tears rolling on her face. That rune was one of my best works. So I am sure. Gaia leaped at Elidor and hugged him tightly. He had given her the best news in many, many years. She did not even dare to think he might be lying or wrong. Deep down, she always felt as though her mother was still out there somewhere. I need to find her. How do I find her? She was still hugging him. You can't, no one can. When she heard Eladir, her smile froze as she let him go. She took a step back to see Eladir sigh. Your mother is a wraith. When a wraith doesn't want to be found, no one can find them. You can't hunt a huntress. Wherever she is, she must be hunting someone. Try the L world. COM platform _ for the most advanced _ reading experience. Somewhere else in the Black Forest, Victoria and Edith were standing among numerous dead mountain trolls. They were in a dark dungeon dimly lit with torches. In addition to mountain trolls, there were countless dried bones and skeletons. Unlike Victoria, who remained calm, Edith was breathing heavily. Is it over? I think so, but don't let your guard down. The sword in Victoria's hand was not made of any metal. Her sword could not even be compared to the swords in this world. Any blade would be cut in half by her sword, because it was made of pure cosmic energy. The emerald green energy sword radiated frightening power. At the end of the dungeon was a metal gate with several glowing runes. Victoria cautiously walked towards the gate, expecting a trap to appear any second. They had faced countless traps, skeleton guards and mountain trolls and undead. Yet, nothing could stop Victoria and Edith. They came prepared and she overwhelmed everything with her cosmic energy. Edith's runes enhanced already god-level powerful Victoria to another level. The mountain trolls and the skeletons stood no chance against her. Unexpectedly, they faced no more traps or enemies on their way to the gate. What do they say? Looking at the glowing runes, Victoria asked Edith. Darkness is not the opposite of light. Edith began to slowly translate the runes. It is just the absence of light. The place where light and dark begin to touch is where miracles arise. It doesn't make any sense. Does it say anything about how to open this gate? Victoria asked, running her hand on the gate. Creak. The moment she touched the gate made a loud creaking noise. They immediately stepped back as the gate slowly opened to reveal what they were looking for, the primordial flame. The hall before them was lit with blue flames on braziers on each corner. In the center of the hall floated two orbs of fire, a pure white flame and a pure black flame. Two primordial flames. Victoria and Edith were startled. They never expected to find two primordial flames in one place. Anyone else in Victoria's place would have gone crazy with excitement. She, however, had a frown on her face. Edith noticed the dark lines on her forehead and asked, Visit L World. COM for a better _ reading experience. Vicky, what's wrong? This is too easy, Victoria muttered. Chapter 445. The Primordial Flames. The two primordial flames were hovering in the air next to each other. Victoria could feel the power being radiated by the two flames. Victoria closed her eyes as a wave of golden energy shot out from her. The wave of cosmic energy scanned the room for any traps. The lines on her forehead became darker. Seeing the cosmic energy activates no traps. Although the cosmic energy activated no traps, Victoria still expected a trap to appear any second when she was making her way towards the primordial flames. The primordial flames didn't react to the intruders. Victoria was informed that the primordial flames have a mind of their own. In the world, there were only 3 primordial flames: Cold Flame, Hell's Flame and Heaven's Flame. Only a few knew the myth of the existence of the 4th primordial flame, the Dark Flame. Victoria recognized the white flame as the Cold Flame. A golden layer enveloped both Edith and Victoria to prevent the coldness radiating from the white flames from penetrating their bodies. Unlike the Cold Flame, she felt nothing from the black flames hovering beside the Cold Flame. How do we take them with us? Asked Edith. She was overwhelmed by the power of the flames. Do you recognize this flame? It's definitely not the Heaven's Flame. Must be the Hell Flame. Let's take them and get out of here before anyone notices our disappearance, Edith said to Victoria. With a nod, Victoria reached out to grab the 2 flames. The golden cosmic energy enveloped her hands as she approached the flames. Victoria felt a sudden pressure pushing her away. The pressure created a force field around the Cold Flame. She gritted her teeth, pushing her hand towards the Cold Flame. Arg! She growled in pain, but she was far from giving up. She was using all of her cosmic energy to get her hands on the flames literally. Edith saw Victoria's face start to go pale and soon her blood dripped through her nostrils. Still, Victoria was fighting through the force field to reach the flames. The blood spurted out of her nostrils after a few moments. Finally, her finger touched the cold flame. And just as her finger touched the flame, it exploded, throwing Edith and Victoria onto the walls behind them. Art. Victoria growled in pain. The entire dungeon shook due to the force of their collision with the walls. When she looked up, her pain disappeared, but instead, a complete utter shock occupied her heart. The flames hovering in the air a few seconds ago were nowhere to be found. The flames just disappeared. She jumped back to her feet. The utter shock was written all over her face. She frantically looked around to locate the flames, but to no avail. Looking for the flames, she walked towards Edith to get her up. Vicky, Edith stood up holding Victoria's hands. The flames? Boom. Before Edith could get an answer from Victoria, the entire dungeon began to tremble. The ceiling above them crumbled, falling down on them. We have to go. Victoria knew there was no time for them to linger around. Their lives were more precious than the primordial flames. While the dungeon was crumbling like a house of cards, they ran as fast as possible. The flame of anger burned inside Victoria hotter and brighter. If she had absorbed the primordial flames, she and her father would have reached a pinnacle of power sooner than they initially planned. The most up-to-date NOV_Ls are published here, L-World. COM only the primordial flames were powerful enough to be equal to the cosmic energy. That was why her father was hunting for the primordial flames. Absorbing the primordial flames would ensure their everlasting domination. Even though they were running for their loves, Victoria took out the compass that had the ability to locate the primordial flames to find where the flames went. Unfortunately, the compass was broken due to the previous collision. The needle was broken in half and the glass was shattered. Damn it! Meanwhile, in the Black Forest, Gaia injected the antidote into Gilrine to wake him up. Michael and Ellider left the area to resume connecting the Blackfoot mushrooms. Arg! Gilrine jolted. He was breathing heavily, and when he saw Gaia squatting beside him, his face went pale. What happened? Gaia asked, pretending not to know anything. Great, I will tell Headmistress Kayla that you were busy sleeping in the middle of the fucking Black Forest. Gaia punched Gilrine on the shoulder. No, I wasn't sleeping. I saw something. Move your ass, we have to get them back to the castle. Gaia didn't linger around but walked away from Gilrine. Gilrine stared around him with a pale face. He quickly checked his pocket to see if the pouch was still there. He was relieved to find the pouch in his pocket just as he left. He could swear he saw something before he lost consciousness. Once again, before following Professor Steinmeier, Gilrine went to the tree and checked if there was something amiss. Did something happen? Now what am I thinking? No one can walk past the headmaster's defenses, Gilrine mumbled under his breath. The two girls along with Michael and Ellider were collecting Blackfoot mushrooms when Gaia returned. She had no idea Victoria and Edith almost absorbed the primordial fires. That's enough, Gaia clapped. Your detention is over. Let's go back to the castle. On their way back to the castle, no one uttered a word. Ellider was staring at everything with an amazing look on his face. Victoria was frustrated by her failure. Edith was pretty shaken up by nearly getting crushed to death. Gilrine was contemplating what just happened back and what made him lose consciousness. And lastly, Gaia. She was having mixed feelings. On one hand, she was happy beyond words because of her not-so-dead mother, and on the other hand, she was worried about her mother's safety. Michael's mind was drifting. Many memories he experienced on Earth as Ghost and in this world as Abras flashed across his eyes. Realizing that Abras and he was the same person established a harmony between the soul piece of Ghost and the soul piece of Abras. It was extremely difficult for him to keep calm instead of going berserk. Go to your dorms. After reaching the castle grounds, Gaia asked them to part ways. The latest _AP_SODIes are on the L World COM website. What about these mushrooms, Professor? Asked Edith. Gaia almost forgot about the Blackfoot mushrooms in her deep thinking. Just give them to Gilrine. Gaia left the students to go to her room. Just like Michael, she also wanted to be alone. Ellider was smiling on their way back to their dorm rooms. The memories of him being a student flooded his mind. He had many happy memoirs in Maze Roth. You're an alchemy student? Even after thousands of years, Ellider still remembered the way to each house's dorm room. I think I'll go to Ringmaster's house. You need some time alone, Elodie said as Michael opened the door to his room. I know the way. Michael just nodded as Elodie turned back and left. When Michael stepped into his room, Nightmare was waiting. Michael did not utter a word. He just flicked his wrist as a punching bag attached to a stand appeared in the center of the room. System, did you know? Michael asked in his mind, standing before the 6-feet punching bag. The system level is too low. His fists clenched as he breathed heavily in anger. The next moment, he willed the system to soundproof the room. Nightmare noticed a dim light appear in the room. Skyhall boom. Michael punched the bag with enough force to create a loud booming sound. Guardians, the punching bag received another hit. Nightmare wanted to ask what happened, but seeing the murderous look and the flickering red eyes, he stayed back. Teen Geo visit L World. COM for a better _user experience. Andreas. Victoria. Thugia. He started to punch faster and faster. The force of his punches shook the room as several cracks began to form in the punching bag. Nightmare noticed the lights in the room go out as the room was soon engulfed in darkness. Let me out, the voice of the third persona sounded in his mind. It was laughing at him, which made him more furious. You can't keep me locked forever. I am you, shut up. Nightmare almost bounced hearing his sudden shout. As Michael was struggling to keep his anger and the third persona contained, Elodie reached the room assigned to Wilkas in the House of Rinmasters. The rooms of the Rinmasters made alchemy students' rooms look like a shabby basement. The common room Elodie was standing in was a wide, circular room, airier than the common room of Alchemy House. Graceful arched windows punctuated the walls, which were hung with blue ambronze silks. By day, the Rinmasters would have a spectacular view of the surrounding mountains. The ceiling was domed and painted with stars, which echoed on the midnight blue carpet. There were tables, chairs, and bookcases, and in a niche opposite the door stood a tall statue of white marble. Elodie didn't give a shit about the elves and the others' gazes on him. As a dark elf, he went through the same bullying as Wilkas. However, unlike Wilkas, Elodie fought back and showed the bullies how it would feel to be bullied with his superior talents. Maggot, filth. Why does he have to be a Rinmaster? I thought he stayed with the alchemists. Elodie walked towards the sofa in the center of the room, and plunged into the comfy sofa. It had been thousands of years since his butt rested on a sofa. Leaning back on the sofa, he put his leg over another. The elves were surprised. They couldn't take him being arrogant in front of them. Filthy maggot from the elven gang. An elf walked towards Elodie with the intention to throw him away. The elves who got their butts kicked by Michael were standing in the corner smiling. He was not in the House of Alchemy but the House of Rinmasters. You can find the rest of this content on the L-World.com platform. They were excited to see the half-elf get beaten. Little did they know that the half-elf they knew was no longer in this world. The one occupying his body was a several thousand years old 6-star Rinmasters. Chapter 446, Something That Could Kill the Dark Lord. Everything has changed except you half-minded idiots. Elodie shook his head disappointedly. He leisurely grabbed the goblet on the side of the table to quench his thirst. The elves were having a bit of a party, so the goblet was filled with red wine produced from the nearby village. Despite the goblet's simple look, it was heavy and imbued with a rune that made the goblet near impossible to break. Ignoring the approaching elf, Elodie took a little sip of wine. His body jolted when the red wine touched his taste buds. I can't say I didn't miss this. Elodie took a long sip and in a few blinks of an eye, he emptied the goblet. You have some bang. The Rinmasters who were looking at the elf dashing at the half-elf stumbled down. They couldn't realize what just happened. The half-elf was drinking wine. The elf was dashing at him. The next thing they saw was the elf collapse to the ground. Only a few seconds later they noticed the crushed goblet in the half-elf's hand. They finally realized that the half-elf hit the elf with the goblet with enough force to not only knock down the elf, but also crush the goblet itself. The amount of force required to crush the goblet was not a joke, yet the half-elf crushed it by hitting the elf in the head. Arg! The elf was grumbling on the ground in pain. He held his head as blood drenched the floor beneath. However, his agony became more painful when Elodie stepped on the elf's throat, increasing pressure little by little. If you assholes want to spend your lives being racists, knock yourselves out. But when I'm here, I don't want to hear a single snarky comment about me or my race. Few of the elves couldn't see a fellow elf being crushed by a half-elf in front of their eyes. Hence, they dared to attack the half-elf. Fighting in the common rooms was not a big deal until no one informed the prefects about the fight. They doubted that even if the prefects knew they beat up a half-elf, they would give a damn about a maggot. After all, the prefects of House Ringmasters were also elves. The elves were a couple of feet away when a sudden vibration reverberated in the room. The elves halted their steps. Their golden hair produced smoke as the smell of burning hair permeated the room. Eladir snapped his finger, and the elves began to tremble violently. Their robes smoke as they crumbled down, leaving the elves naked. Their golden skin soon turned as red as ripe tomatoes. Visit Elworld. COM. For the best no_vel_read_ng experience. The other Ringmaster, witnessing the scene with startling faces, looked down to see a glowing chakra on the floor where the elves were standing. When did he place the rune? What rune is that? So powerful. How did he do that? The onlookers were stunned beyond words. Eladir snickered inside, seeing how a basic level rune could surprise these amateurs like this. The energy in his soul deteriorated over the years, and once a half-immortal stage cultivation was now a mere body-refining stage cultivator. Until Eladir could cultivate to become stronger, he would only be able to use mediocre runes. Nonetheless, these basic runes were enough to keep the elves from annoying him in his time at Mazeroth. Next time, I'll burn the thing between your legs. Eladir threw aside the goblet before making his way towards his room. The elves who were being electrocuted collapsed to the ground finally, when Eladir snapped his fingers again. Now someone shows me my room. He evilly grinned, which sent a chill through everyone's spines. Somewhere else on the Azer continent, Noah was trekking through a snowy mountain. As far as one could see, there was nothing but milky white snow and crystallized ice pikes that were sharp as daggers. The howling sound of the wind was the only thing that accompanied them, while the blowing wind brushed past their bodies with enough force to knock them down at any moment. Arg, I miss flying, Noah sighed, but kept trekking through the snow. And I miss a roof above my head and something that saves my Harry but from freezing, the golden Bobberu, Norvin, curled up inside Noah's inner pockets. The monkey made a comfy home of his long coat's pocket, but still bitched about the weather. You should have brought Alicia instead of me. She must have loved being literally cold. We are close, Noah, Andreas' voice sounded in his head. Shoo, Noah shushed Norvin quickly. The old man inside the ring talking to you again? Norvin rolled his eyes, being annoyed by getting shushed. Full_ow current_novel on Elworld. Apart from Noah, Norvin was the only one who knew the existence of Andreas. Just like the dragons, Norvin's race, the golden Babberus also possessed the skill to view the world differently. After Norvin reached the core formation stage, he sensed a living being in Noah's ring. His suspicions were confirmed when Noah was stuck in an unwinnable fight, and Andreas had to manifest to save him. Conjure the heavens flame. Hearing his mentor's voice, Noah closed his eyes as an emerald green flame shot out of his hand. The green light lit their path. Look, Norvin quickly pointed out at the runes on their path to the top of the mountain. We are on the right path. Andreas was excited. It was the first time he sounded excited since they found the location of the Dark Lord. The failure to apprehend the Dark Lord still haunted both Noah and Andreas. They were so close to capturing him, yet he outsmarted him by using Noah's family as hostages. What happened that day made Noah realize what the Dark Lord was capable of, and the necessity to eliminate him. What they were seeking could help in doing just that. They followed the runes to the top of the mountain. Noah climbed the mountain with new vigor, seeing he was close to the weapon that could slay the Dark Lord. Tell me why we can't fly up again? Asked Norvin, feeling tired just by seeing Noah climb the mountain. Using arch energy will activate the traps, Noah answered while climbing higher and higher. The higher he climbed, the colder it got. The runes led him to a dead end where he saw nothing but a stone wall in front. I thought a door or a pathway would appear. Norvin rubbed his hairy chin. Teacher, Noah called out Andreas standing in front of the wall where the runes are glowing. These are Lady Chinjio's runes. There is no doubt. Andreas' ethereal figure manifested out. While Andreas was studying the runes, Noah conjured a ball of heaven's flame and sent a stream of emerald green flame towards the wall. The wall didn't open as Noah expected, but a bright beam of light shot out within the wall toward Noah. Noah's instincts made his legs dash out of the way, yet the bright beam was too fast and Noah was standing too close to the wall. Unexpectedly, the bright beam of light shot through Noah, doing no harm to him. The god of light, a sweet feminine voice echoed through the snowy mountain. The showering snowy rain stopped all of a sudden, as though someone pushed the pause button. The mountain before Noah slowly split open to reveal a grandiose hall. Noah stepped into the hall as the mountain closed up behind him. The 11 braziers on each side of the hall lit up, brightening the hall. A snowy white carpet materialized under Noah's feet to the end of the hall, as he cautiously took his steps forward. There were 4 12-feet statues made of ice stood majestically. 2 of the statues were female while the other 2 were male. Despite their gender difference, the 4 of them looked extremely dominant and mighty. "Who are they?" asked Norvin in amazement. Updated _ at Elworld. CUM, the 4 great legends. Norvin saw Andreas' ethereal form bow towards the statues. His eyes were full of reverence as though he was worshipping them. Archer Crook, Ingrid Stenham, Chiojin and Karjan Pavlovich. Archer Crook, the heavenly warrior. Andreas looked at the statue of a man in battle armor. He was holding a sword in one hand, and a spear in another. Andreas turned his gaze to the statue of a graceful smiling lady who held a tiny bonsai tree in her hand, Ingrid Stenham, the legendary 6-star alchemist. Her talents were beyond any star levels. The legend has that a drop of the healing potion brewed by her could heal an army to their full health. He turned around to look at the statue of a long-haired muscular man with a hammer, Karjan Pavlovich. The only human 6-star blacksmith this world has ever seen. Finally, they all turned their eyes to the statue of a lady in Qipao. Her hair was tied into a bun, and unlike the rest of the statues, she was looking at the stone table at the end of the hall. Qinjiu, the woman who saw the future, the mother of the great prophecy. Noah was surprised to see Andreas kneel down in front of her. "We won't fail you, Lady Qinjiu," Andreas said, letting out a deep breath. After saying those words, the trio cautiously walked toward the stone table. They expected to spring a trap any second, but they never did. When they reached the stone table, they saw 2 hand imprints on the table. "I have a feeling you 2 should place your hands on the marks," Norvin exclaimed. Andreas and Noah looked around. There was nothing except statues and the stone table in the hall. "Shall we?" Noah believed those who were called him here. They had no intention to harm him. If they had, they would have done it by now. Therefore he placed his hand on the stone table, and so did Andreas. Nothing happened for a moment, but soon, the hall trembled as they noticed the heads of the 3 legends slowly turning towards them. From each of them, a bright beam of light shot out at Noah. Finally, a golden light shot out from Qinjiu's statues. When the 4 light beams met at the center of the stone table, the same voice they heard before sounded again. "Find the other 4 arrows and vanquish the darkness." From the 4 lights emerged an arrow that radiated an immense amount of power. The arrow was made of no metal but light. Noah gently grabbed the arrow, and the moment he touched the arrow, it disappeared into him. He sensed the arrow within him, in a form of energy. Visit Elworld.com for a better user experience. "We are one step closer to ending him, teacher," Noah grinned. Chapter 447. The Dark Lord from the Future. The next day, Gaia attended the combat class only to see Michael absent. Eladir was there, sitting on the last bench as Wilka's. For Gaia, what Eldari revealed was joyous news to be celebrated. After all, she had learned that her mother is still alive. But for Michael, it was devastating. Everything he knew and experienced turned out to be a sham. His entire life was controlled by a prophecy he never wanted to be a part of. In a short amount of life, he had faced so many betrayals, and even worse, betrayal by his own family and the girl he loved, Victoria. She knew how he was feeling, a puppet, a boogeyman created by the Sky Hall. If he was what they claimed, he wouldn't have saved her, Raylene, Christopher, and revived a dying sect to live. Regardless of his intentions, he saved more people than a typical guardian. The thought of Skyhall and the Guardians pushing him on the path to become the Dark Lord and dictating his life pissed off her. He always acted calm even when the odds were against him, which happened rarely due to his caution and plans. She wasn't sure how he had been reacting. Her mind was boggled on her way to his room. Since she sent all the students, including the alchemists, out on training, no one saw her entering the House of Alchemists. Her heart was pounding faster and faster as she got closer to his room. Sai standing in front of his door. She took a deep breath. She rotated the wedding ring on her finger nervously. The room was ominously silent. The thought of him leaving her flashed across her mind, almost making her eyes water. She didn't know why she thought that, but the thought did come across her mind. Her hands shivered, moving towards the doorknob. When she finally opened the door, she was thoroughly shocked. She just stood in the doorway dumbstruck. Michael was doing push-ups rather than being sad or gloomy. The other surprising thing was he had the Lucifer armor on an armor stand. His naked upper body had smudges of black paint which indicated he had been painting the armor and modifying it. "Hey gorgeous," she saw him jump back on his feet. He walked to her with a wide grin on his face, wrapped his hand around her waist, pulled her closer, and locked her lips with his. For a man who should have been gloomy, he was way too cheery. "Hey human. What's going on?" "I've been busy modifying my armor and training," he flexed his muscles. Under normal circumstances, she would have gawked at his chiseled body with awe. He went back to the armor and attached the hidden blades to the sleeves. Michael, she was confused. She expected anything but this. He was so cheery than usual. "I was thinking that I should remove the cape." Gaia saw him rubbing his beard doubtfully. Visit to L-World. COM discover_new novels. Are you gone mad? His behavior creeped her out. Yesterday he was so gloomy and silent. She was afraid that too much anger and sadness muddled his brain. "I was," Michael smiled, brushing the dust off of his armor. "What do you mean I was?" "Stop looking at that fucking armor and talk to me." She stomped the floor. Michael turned his gaze at her. A gentle smile appeared on his face. With a worried look on her face, Gaia walked to him. Her eyes expressed the concern in her heart better than her words and face. He cupped her face, gently kissing her forehead. "I was mad to try to run away from my destiny, Gaia. I always thought Lucifer is the mask and ghost is real. But no, yesterday, I realized it was the other way around." Michael let her face go to put his hand around her neck. He walked towards the windows with Gaia. "Every time I put on the armor, I say to myself, this has to be done to make my life easier. The desire to control the world from shadows was just a fantasy of mine." He paused for a second as the doom suddenly grew darker. "Now I realized it wasn't a fantasy, it was my destiny. Even after learning everything about the Order, the prophecy, what the Guardians did, I tried to run away from my destiny. I wanted to change it. But dread it, run from it. Destiny arrives all the same." Gaia sensed an otherworldly aura from him. Even the breathing became harder, as she felt like being choked by the aura. "You're acting weird, Michael. You're not the Dark Lord they claimed you to be. You're better than that, I know you. If anyone is evil, it's the Skyhall and Guardians. I am the Dark Lord nonetheless. Why try to avoid who I really am? If they had left me alone when I was born, I might have lived and died as an ordinary person. But they showed me the path to become something more, a god. A god who could reshape this world to his own liking." The fear shrouded Gaia's mind as the light in the room continued to flicker. Soon the room fell pitch black. Manipulating the darkness was not a skill or spell he bought from the system. Rather, he felt as natural as breathing. His strength had gone through the roofs, and he sensed that he would be more powerful if he merged with the third piece of the soul. Just making peace with himself unlocked an ancient power in him. When the lights returned to the room, Gaia was staring at him with a pale face. New_chap_ters are pub_lished on L-World. Calm, don't worry Snakey. This is what the future me wants. Michael smiled looking at the distant horizon. When he saw her face, confusion was written all over her face. Think about it, Gaia. Qinjiu went to the future and saw the Dark Lord. And who is the Dark Lord? Me. You heard Eladair. I beat her to half-death but didn't kill her. That doesn't sound like me unless I let her live. You're saying you came from the future. It makes sense, doesn't it? How we met, the portraits of me in the dark forest, how I met Nightmare. Don't you feel like everything is connected? I don't care where you came from or from when you came. I'll be at your side as long as I'm alive. What if your family gave you away? I'm all the family you need. Gaia embraced him in a tight hug. She squeezed him, having no intention to let him go. Knock. Knock. Gaia jolted away from him when someone knocked on the door. It's me, can I come in? Elidar's voice came from the other side of the door. "Come in," said Michael as Eldari opened the door to come in. "Am I interrupting something?" Seeing the half-naked Michael and the tense body of Gaia, Elidar thought they were exploring the area of love together. "Nope. Did you find everything you need?" Elidar walked towards the armor of Lucifer hanging on the armor stand. He just looked at it from top to bottom before turning his gaze back at Michael. "I had to go through some annoying conversations, but I managed to get everything. Now we just need a vessel and someone who could weaken the vessel with your soul piece in it. The latest _AP_SODIs are on _the L world. See OM website." With a flick of his wrist, Michael took out a tablet-sized mirror from the system storage. He threw it at Elidar. "There is your vessel." Elodie looked at the mirror to see a mountain troll in it, but this mountain troll was nothing like the one he scared using his energy a day ago. The mountain troll in the mirror was on fire, and had a pillar with scorching hot lava oozing down. A fire giant. Elidar had seen only a few in his lifetime. They were extremely rare, and almost extinct from the world thanks to the Skyhall. They were one of the races Skyhall deemed as helping the Dark Lord. Thus, they almost wiped them out from the face of this world. "A fire giant, you say? That thing crawled through a ruin far north from here. Relatively closer to where we went to collect Blackfoot mushrooms." Gaia took the mirror from Elidar's hand and saw the fire giant sleeping. The snoring giant was a couple of times bigger and meaner than the mountain troll Gilrine loved. "We will let the fire and ice battle it out. In 2 days, I want my soul to be whole again." The ritual to extract the third piece of soul out had to be performed on a full moon day. Fortunately, the next full moon was in 2 days. The fire giant's appearance was not a coincidence, but a result of Victoria's visit to the dungeon. She killed everything that guarded the dungeon except the fire giant. When the primordial flames left the dungeon, they woke up the slumbering giant. The giant was now tracking the primordial flames. Michael was oblivious to the intention of the fire giant. His first priority was to make his soul whole. He had a feeling that once his soul became whole again, his powers would grow exponentially. "What's the plan?" asked Gaia. "I will lure the fire giant to the ritual site. You make sure no one plays hero." Michael then explained the full extent of his plan to Elidar and Gaia. After hearing the plan, Elidar was quite surprised. The plan was simple but elegant and fail-proof. Slowly Elidar realized why a legend of a person such as Chinjio shuddered to even utter his name. He had devastating power and a brain to outsmart his opponents. This was a deadly combination. Moreover, his soul seemed to be in peace unlike when he first met him. "What's the plan after you absorb the third piece?" asked Gaia. "Try the L world. See OM platform _ for the most advanced _ reading experience." Farming badass points, Michael thought in his mind, but only revealed a smile to Gaia. "You're tuning in to the Lee May's Sword of Destiny YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure."